Chapter 64, Rapid Advancement in Cultivation. Yi Shiwen was sweating heavily after that scary thought had attacked his consciousness and had almost destroyed his mind. This was quite a terrifying experience for him. "Are you all right, little brother?" Yi Feng asked in a worried voice because he did not know what exactly had happened to Yi Shiwen. He just saw Lin Zhantian shouting and suddenly rushing towards Yi Shiwen, who was drenched in sweat and looked terrified at that moment. "It's nothing, I am all right," Yi Shiwen said in a calm voice. However, that vivid thought had firmly imprinted itself into his mind and it had become impossible for him to forget it. "Blame me," Lin Zhantian said. "I did not warn you in time, but you cannot read this secret book of coiling dragon palm." "Why?" Yi Shiwen asked. "A long time ago, our forefathers had brought back this coiling dragon palm power technique from the ruins of a suspected ancient martial arts era," Lin Zhantian slowly explained. "Ancient martial arts era." All of the three disciples exclaimed at once. In ancient times, there existed an extremely glorious martial arts civilization, and now only a few bits and pieces of that era had remained. The once glorious era of martial arts had now just turned into a legend. Yes, this power technique comes from the ancient martial arts era, but after obtaining it from the ruins, no one could actually learn it, because this type of martial arts technique is inherited and learned through thoughts, and no one could withstand the immensity of that thought. Lin Zhantian explained, "It contains a mighty writing and the method to learn this technique is hidden as a thought between the lines. Long ago, a lot of our ancestors had tried to inherit this martial arts technique, but in the end, the thought present inside this secret book had destroyed their souls and killed them. After a long time, no one paid attention to it anymore and it finally fell into my hands. I brought it here, but due to a temporary oversight, I was distracted and forgot to warn you kids about it. Fortunately, all three of you are all right." Yi Shiwen had a burst of lingering fear because just now, his soul might have been torn apart by that terrifying thought and his mind would have completely collapsed. If this thought had not been sucked inside the mysterious space, then he would definitely have faced a mental breakdown and death by now. The thought was really too frightening, and no one knew who had created or passed down this incredible martial arts technique. But it contained just handwritten text, then how could it actually contain such a terrifying thought? Hidden among the text and even the passage of innumerable years couldn't erase it. From this, one could easily infer the incredible prowess of the creator of this book. "You can't learn this martial arts technique. You absolutely cannot, so give it up," Lin Zhantian said. Yi Shiwen nodded and didn't argue with Lin Zhantian, but he also knew that the terrifying thought had been absorbed into the mysterious space. Later, if he wanted to take a look at it, he could do it anytime, so he didn't need to argue over something that he had already acquired. Yi Shiwen kept the secret book of coiling dragon palm on the shelf, and chose another power technique called restraining breath technique. Although a lot of power techniques, more or less, mentioned about how to hide one's breath. However, this power technique specialized in the field, not to mention, it was also a Xiantian level technique. Others were surprised because they couldn't understand why Yi Shiwen had not chosen an attack-type Xiantian power technique, but rather, he chose such a technique that would be useless for fighting. However, they did not know that Yi Shiwen had already learned many fighting-based Xiantian-level power techniques, and if he was to choose one more, it would be equivalent to biting off more than he could chew. After each of the three winners had chosen a power technique, the core disciples competition had finally come to an end, and whole Yuan school had become noisy, talking about the recent incidents. The news of Zhang family sending a Xiantian master inside the Blood Yuan territory to massacre the Yuan school disciples and seize all of the Blood Yuan fruits had spread throughout the school, but no one would have thought that this Xiantian master had been killed instead, along with all of the other Zhang core disciples. Overnight, the news spread in the Yuan school like a forest fire, and the headline clearly referred to Yi Ziwen's exploits and how he had single-handedly beheaded a Xiantian disciple. Now, everyone knew that Yi Shiwen had actually beheaded a Xiantian disciple of Zhang family. In a short period of time, Yi Ziwen's reputation had incredibly surpassed that of those established top disciples of previous years, and many disciples had started to recognize him as the strongest top core disciple. However, when there was uproar in the outside world, and everyone was talking about the exploits of Yi Shiwen, but he seemed to have vanished and no one could find him. After choosing a Xiantian power technique, Yi Shiwen didn't waste time and shut himself up to start the closed-door practice. He was going to the main sect after 3 months, so while he still had time, each second of it was valuable for practicing, because he needed to be strong enough to sustain himself among the geniuses who were also going to enroll with Yi Shiwen. After entering into the main sect, the competition would be even more intense. In a blink of an eye, a month's time had already passed. In the backside of Qingfeng Mountain, the intermittent loud roars of a dragon could be heard echoing in the sky. Yi Shiwen had a calm expression on his face, and suddenly, his palm shot out, and a figure, with its hands clasped together, leaped inside the mountain forest using dragon tiger steps. Boom! With a loud sound, a large tree instantly collapsed by a forceful slap of Yi Shiwen's palm using coiling dragon palm. Yi Shiwen stopped his movements and calculated the time and found out that he had been practicing over a month. In just a month, his strength had progressed by leaps and bounds. His cultivation had reached all the way to the peak of Hotian 9th stage and was only one step away from entering into the Xiantian realm. He had also condensed 20% of his Zhenqi into Xiantian Zhenqi, and his strength had directly reached the strength of 3 dragons, which was even comparable to the strength of a Xiantian 2nd stage master. Now, Yi Shiwen had become powerful enough to easily defeat a Xiantian expert like Lu Ji in few moves only. Also, during this month, Yi Shiwen had gained the most progress in his martial arts techniques, and for that, he had to burn a large number of spirit stones to advance his martial arts skills, faster in a short span of time. The first was Missing Moon Beheader. After a month of crazy practicing, he had finally succeeded to reach the Deshang realm, and now, he could strike 9 consecutive blades one after the other, which was big feat even for a Xiantian master. And chopping 9 consecutive blades was the dead end for Missing Moon Beheader, but, with the strike of each additional blade, the total might of the attack would also increase significantly, and after 9 consecutive blade strikes, one could imagine the terrifying might present in the 9th blade. After a month of continuously burning the spirit stones, his celestial step technique had also reached the next level. Initially, this technique was incomplete and could only be regarded as an advanced technique. At that time, Yi Shiwen had practiced it to the Deshang realm, but later, inside the special space, he completely deduced the missing Xiantian realm parts of celestial step. Although he had merely mastered the first glimpse of Xiantian realm parts, but now, his speed had increased by more than 50% of what it used to be. It could be said that his speed had increased to a terrifying level. While practicing Tyrant Body technique, he had finally reached the peak of Xiaocheng realm, and was only one step away from entering into the Deshang realm, and once he did, his physical strength would grow rapidly. Lastly, he had completely practiced restraining breath technique to its highest possible level. Chapter 65. Departure. After completely mastering the restraining breath technique, now, even if he stood next to a master of the peak Hotian 9th stage, his breath would not be discovered. And so long as he was careful enough, he had full confidence to pull a fast one on a Xiantian master. Yi Shiwen also discovered that the utility of restraining breath technique was far more than just restraining the breath. It could even change the breath of the practitioner completely into another person's breath, which was very rare. He had spent a lot of time on practicing coiling dragon palm and had also burnt a large number of spirit stones so that he could continue to stay inside the special space present in his mind. That scary thought had been absorbed by the special space, and now, he could practice coiling dragon palm as and when he wished to do so, because inside that mysterious space, he did not need to be worried about that scary thought going berserk inside his mind. So long as he had time and enough spirit stones, Yi Shiwen could observe and emulate this coiling dragon palm technique, but it was too subtle and his cultivation level was too low to be able to fully comprehend it. After a month of continuous burning of spirit stones, he had begun to comprehend only a section of that thought and had learnt the first move of coiling dragon palm, named Hidden Dragon Rising from the Abyss. The power present in the move, Hidden Dragon Rising from the Abyss, was tremendous, but it came at a major cost, because once used, it would consume 10% of the Xiantian Zhenqi instantly. This month, the strength of Yi Shiwen had progressed extremely fast, enough to surpass the rate of consumption of spirit stones. In just a month, to practice inside the special space, he had consumed more than 50,000 spirit stones, which was more than half of his total stock of spirit stones. Although he had not yet entered into the Xiantian realm, but now, he was confident enough to beat any master of the Xiantian first stage, and he could even compete with the masters of Xiantian second stage and could easily exchange blows with them. After continuously practicing for a month, Yi Shiwen did not continue to stay in the backside of Qingfeng Mountain and returned to the Yiyuan school. What? You are going to walk alone to the main sect? At the Yi family's residence, the members of Yi family were sitting on a dinner table and suddenly, Xia Chuanxue exclaimed. With a puzzled expression on his face, Yi Kongming looked at Yi Shiwen, because he couldn't understand why Yi Shiwen had planned to walk all the way to the main sect. Do you know how long it takes to walk from Qingfeng Mountain to main sect? Xia Chuanxue asked. At least more than 2 months if you walk at a moderate pace. I know, but my cultivation has reached a bottleneck and I think that walking all the way to the main sect would turn out to be a good training for me. Yi Shiwen said. Generally, main sect would always send giant demon birds to serve as mounts for the disciples. These flying mounts were not uncommon in the main sect, especially for those Xiantian masters who were unable to fly, and these demon birds acted as their mounts to fly in the sky. There were a variety of mounts available, such as to fly in the sky, to run on the ground, and to swim in the water. These flying demon birds also served as a communication link between the Qingfeng Mountain and the main sect. Therefore, although they were going to enter into the main sect in just 3 months, but Yi Feng and other core disciples were not anxious and were quietly waiting for the people from main sect to come and pick them up. Yi Kongming looked at Yi Shiwen, then turned his face towards Xia Chuanxue and said, if he wants to go alone, then let him go. He will gain a lot of experience from this journey, and he will also get a chance to learn about the local customs, which will be quite beneficial for his future practice. But going by the road can be dangerous, Xia Chuanxue said in a worried voice. Kids need to have their own adventures because you can't expect a circus tiger to hunt in a wild forest. Wen-er is not a kid anymore and we can't protect him for a lifetime. Yi Kongming said. Well, but you have to be very careful on the way, Xia Chuanxue said. And I will. Yi Shiwen nodded, and then he took out a porcelain vase from his bosom and said, this is a Xiantian pellet. When the time comes, please give it to sister for me. At that time, both Yi Feng and Yi Ruxue were doing closed-door practice in order to have a breakthrough before heading for the main sect. Isn't this Xiantian pellet yours? How can you give it your sister? Xia Chuanxue immediately said. What will you use? Rest assured, I have 2 Xiantian pellets. Yi Shiwen said, and he knew that it was very difficult for them to believe him, so he took out the other Xiantian pellet in front of them. Then it's all right. Xia Chuanxue had to agree. Both Xia Chuanxue and Yi Kongming were considerate enough to not ask about the source of this second Xiantian pellet. At that time, they were both glad for Yi Ruxue, because now, with the help of a Xiantian pellet, she would be able to safely enter into the Xiantian realm. They were very happy, because all of their children loved as well as supported each other. The 3 siblings would support each other after entering into the main sect. Just knowing this much was enough for Yi Kongming and Xia Chuanxue, and they couldn't ask for anything more. They just wanted their children to lead happy and peaceful lives. When Xia Chuanxue accepted the Xiantian pellet for Yi Ruxue, a genuine smile appeared on Yi Shiwen's face. After coming to this world, he had lost all of his previous relationships. His loved ones had been left behind in the previous world, and now, everything related to his original world existed only in his memories. So, the existence of Yi family worked as a mental support for him, and he was genuinely happy to be of some help to them. After coming to this world, Yi Shiwen had totally freaked out when he noticed that he possessed memories of 2 persons. In order to get rid of this confused mental state, he had decided to create a new identity for him in this new life and world. And he cared a lot for his family members and could do anything for their sake. Yi Ziwen's decision to walk alone all the way to the main sect had caused a huge buzz in the Yiyuan school because he was not an ordinary disciple, but was a rare talent of Yiyuan school because he had become the strongest top core disciple after killing a Xiantian master. He had become the ace of Qingfeng Mountain's Yuan school, and if he would walk alone to the main sect, then everyone feared that he might face an accident on the way. Moreover, Yuan school had many enemies, including Zhang family, and they could pose a threat to his life. However, the principle of this world was might is right. While executives did not quite agree to his decision, but Yi Shiwen didn't care about their stand and had already decided that, next morning after packing his things, he would leave Qingfeng Mountain and walk towards the main sect. Chapter 66, Blue Flaming Flower. The sun was setting in the western sky, and one could hear a burst of hoofs. The sunlight had drawn a long shadow of the person riding on a horse. On a horse, a teenager clad in black clothes was rapidly riding on the main road. While riding the horse on the main road, a small town appeared in Yi Ziwen's field of vision. Since leaving the Qingfeng Mountain, he had already traveled for 2 days on the main road. In the Qingfeng town, he had bought a fast horse for 500 low-grade spirit stones, and this was no ordinary horse, because it carried the blood of a demon beast in its body. There was a large distance between Qingfeng Mountain and Yuan School's main sect, and took about 2 months to cover this distance by road, and an ordinary horse would die before covering even 1/10 of this distance. For Yi Shiwen, a common horse was just not enough. He was a strong expert with Xiantian-level skills in his body. He could go without eating and sleeping for days, but that was not the case for common horses. However, this horse contained the blood of a demon beast in its body, increasing its endurance and making it 2 times faster at the same time. So now, Yi Shiwen did not need to spend all his time on the road and could stop and practice as well whenever he wanted to do so. Yi Shiwen entered this small town and asked around to find out that this town was called Kaojiaji, and Chao family had the biggest influence in this town, to such an extent that the entire town relied on the businesses owned by Chao family. Yi Shiwen also discovered that there were many warriors of varying strengths going in and out of the town. The weakest among them were at the Hotian 6th stage, and powerful warriors had already entered half a step into the Xiantian realm, and some were even the masters of Xiantian realm. He found an inn to settle down and found a place for the horse as well. He wanted to have dinner, so he took a seat in the dining hall of the inn, and a waiter came forward to give him a warm welcome. "Sir, what can I do for you?" "First, give me a bowl of herbal tea and a variety of side dishes along with it." Yi Shiwen placed the order. To hasten his journey, he didn't have time to eat and won't always get proper time and place to relax and have dinner. "Right away," the waiter replied. "Waiter, wait for a second, I have something to ask you. Is something going on in the Kaojiaji town? I see a lot of warriors wandering around here." Yi Shiwen asked. "Sir, have you not enlisted yet?" The waiter said in a surprised voice. "Well, in the radius of 30 li, our Kaojiaji town is located on an underground magma pool, and recently, someone found the blue flaming flower in a dormant volcano. The news about it spread wide and far and attracted many warriors. 2 days ago, the lord of our Chao family has also started to recruit brave warriors to send an expedition." Blue flaming flower? Yi Shiwen gawked and never thought to hear about such a rare treasure in a small town like this. He had read in many records that it grew only in the extremely high-temperature environment of magma. Of course, there were many benefits one could get by consuming this flower. It could transform the mortal body into a fire spirit, and then, one could practice fire attribute power techniques, which was quite rare. But why recruit warriors for that? Yi Shiwen asked this question because who wouldn't want to hog such a rare treasure? "Good question, sir, because a monster lives inside the magma pool to guard the treasure." When the waiter said monster, he could not help but shiver a bit, and that ferocious monster has already killed several scout warriors. So there is such a thing. Yi Shiwen frowned, but a demon beast guarding a rare treasure was a very normal thing. But this was obviously not a general demon beast, otherwise, it would not have made such uproar. "What do you know about that monster?" Yi Shiwen asked. "All I know is that Chao family is now recruiting warriors who can slay this monster, and if you are interested, you may enlist your name as well." The waiter said, "It would be nice if you killed that monster, because Magma Pool is not far away from the town, and the monster would frequently visit here, and has also killed people from the Chao family." Originally, Yi Shiwen just wanted to take a rest in this small town, but now he had become very interested in that blue flaming flower and decided to wait and see what would happen in the end. After about a minute had passed and the inn slowly began to get crowded and almost all of the rooms had been booked in no time. Yi Shiwen also booked a room, then slowly sat down on a seat and began to eat and drink together. In the last 2 days, he didn't get a chance to have a relaxed dinner like this. Then, suddenly, Yi Shiwen noticed a tower-like large man entering inside the inn. He glanced around and saw that all the seats were occupied, and right then he saw Yi Shiwen sitting by the window. He strode to the front of Yi Shiwen and said in a low muffled voice, "Boy, step aside and quickly get lost, then grandfather will spare your life." "Get lost." Yi Shiwen did not turn his head, but shouted loudly. Only the strong commanded respect in this world, which followed the principle of might is right. Yi Shiwen looked weak compared to that burly man that had resulted into this situation. "What did you say, you little bastard?" The brawny man suddenly stared at Yi Shiwen with his big eyes, and his big hand instantly shot towards Yi Shiwen. Bang! Yi Shiwen slammed his palm on the table, and suddenly, a chopstick flew up from the table. Yi Shiwen struck the chopstick with his palm using the coiling dragon palm power technique. Phew! The chopstick exuded a sharp piercing sound and flew with a lightning speed towards the big hand of that brawny guy. Ugh! The brawny guy screamed in a loud voice when the chopstick pierced right through his palm with a terrifying force and sent his body flying. That severely hit on the wall and his hand got firmly nailed on the wall by that chopstick. The brawny guy was endlessly wailing while his hand was nailed on the wall, but from Yi Shiwen's demeanor, it seemed as if nothing had happened at all. He took out a new set of chopsticks from the box and started eating once again. Yi Shiwen knew, at this time, there must be numerous people staring at him. These were the rebellious warriors and desperados. However, they had not entered into the Xiantian realm, so Yi Shiwen simply did not care about them. But this could be troublesome for him because the rumors about the blue flaming flower and the enlisting of warriors for subduing the monster had attracted a lot of strong masters to arrive at this small town, and Yi Shiwen did not want to have a high profile. Now that Yi Shiwen had effortlessly defeated that noisy burly guy in front of everyone, he could feel several gazes looking maliciously at him. Ha ha, this young brother's got some fine skills. Chapter 67, Monster. Ha ha, this young brother's got some fine skills. The sound of footsteps came from the upstairs, and Yi Shiwen saw a youth wearing embroidered clothes coming down the stairs while laughing heartily. I did not expect to actually be able to see such a skilled master here. It's so unexpected. The youth wearing embroidered clothes did not even look at that wailing brawny who was still conscious and had luckily not died. Yi Shiwen had a surprised look in his eyes. This youth had actually concealed his breath, but after practicing restraining breath technique, Yi Shiwen had become particularly sensitive and immediately found out that this youth was actually a great master of the Xiantian realm. He walked up to the front of Yi Shiwen and introduced himself. "Hello, my name is Dai Xiaohua. Nice to meet you. What's your name, brother?" "Dai Xiaohua." Yi Shiwen twitched his eyebrows. A big man like him was actually called wearing small flowers. Well, he seemed like an ignorant person to Yi Shiwen, but he apparently did not feel anything about introducing himself as wearing small flowers, or maybe he had gotten used to it. "My name is Yi Shiwen," Yi Shiwen said, and he already knew that this youth was not malicious. After learning the restraining breath technique, Yi Shiwen's understanding of other person's breath had progressed by leaps and bounds. It not only could restrain and change the breath, but could also tell whether a person was hostile or not, based on his breath. One could easily disguise the facial expressions, but breath was the only thing that one could never disguise. "Ha ha, after looking for so long, I finally found a decent master." Dai Xiaohua smiled and said, "Unlike these motley crew." Dai Xiaohua was obviously talking about the warriors sitting in the inn, but surprisingly, although these warriors had angry looks on their faces, but they suppressed their anger and did not say anything. This made Yi Shiwen somewhat curious about Dai Xiaohua. There was a huge difference of martial arts heritage between these warriors and Yi Shiwen. They were simply a group of outlaws, and their daily jobs involved struggles between life and death. This had turned them into hot-tempered and irritable people. But They still didn't say any word on Dai Zaiwa's sarcastic comment. Not of all these warriors were in the Hotian realm, and there were some very strong masters among them, including some who had surpassed the Hotian realm. As if Dai Xiaohua had seen through Yi Zaiwen's curiosity, he laughed and said, "It's nothing. These people do not acknowledge logic but strength. Since they cannot defeat me, they can only endure." This straightforward reply from Dai Xiaohua left a good and deep impression on Yi Shiwen, and this frank youth was far better than those other warriors. "Brother Yi, are you going to enlist yourself as the brave warrior of Chao family?" Dai Xiaohua asked. Yi Shiwen nodded. "Haha, let's join together then." Dai Xiaohua laughed and said, "Well, let's go then." Yi Shiwen laughed and was somewhat curious about the background of this youth, because he was so young and was already a Xiantian master, so one could imagine the strength of a master who had taught such a genius. "Come on, we go now," Dai Xiaohua said. "So late?" Yi Shiwen asked. "It's not late, because every night, the monster comes to visit this small town. Chao family is anxious and wants to recruit strong masters to protect the town from this danger," Dai Xiaohua said. They did not sit there for too long and immediately headed towards Chao family's manor. Since the entire town was run by Chao family, so the Chao family's manor was located at the center of Keojiaji town. Dai Xiaohua had come to a few days ago and was familiar with the Keojiaji town. Although the color of the sky was gradually getting dark, but Chao family's manor had a brightly lit appearance with countless torches lighting up the night sky. At this time, the door to Chao family's manor was still open and several gatekeepers were guarding the gate. When they saw the two of them coming together, a guard immediately approached and shouted, "Who are you? We brothers heard that your Chao family is recruiting warriors. We have especially come to enlist ourselves." Dai Xiaohua approached and said. Then, after a few minutes, two Chao family's executives came out to welcome them and said, "This time, many people from our Chao family have been killed by the monster, and I hope that you can help us catch the monster. We Chao family will be highly obliged." These two men were the high-level executives from Chao family. To prevent any more casualties by the recurring attacks of the monster, they had recruited many warriors and had dispersed them in all directions inside the town to protect the people. "According to my daily observations, the monster comes into the town almost every day, so tonight we should be able to see a good show," Dai Xiaohua said while lying down on a bench in the garden and holding a weed in the mouth, smiling in front of Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen sat cross-legged on a nearby bench and started practicing. He was practicing in the special space and could exit from that space anytime, so he was not worried. As time passed, night grew darker and surrounding sounds also disappeared gradually. People were holding their breath, waiting for the arrival of the monster. Dai Xiaohua did not stay there for long and soon left to search for the whereabouts of that monster. Night grew deeper, and slowly, the whole sky was obscured by the clouds, and became pitch black, but Chao family's mansion still remained as bright as the day. Then suddenly Yi Shiwen opened his eyes and saw a giant hideous head in front of him. Fire sparks would come out from its breath along with a blow of heat wave. Clang! Almost instantaneously, Yi Shiwen took out his long blade from the scabbard on his back and chopped out a dazzling blade light towards the huge head. Dang! The blade light chopped on the giant head and unexpectedly produced a metal clashing sound. The sharp blade light drew a white mark on that giant head, but the monster was frightened from this sudden attack from Yi Shiwen and suddenly jumped back. Yi Shiwen finally got a look at this giant head. He actually saw a 10-feet-high beast with its 4 claws dug into the ground, covered with numerous red and black-colored dense scales and suffused with a breathtaking coldness with a slight tint of fiery brightness. A terrifying aura firmly locked on Yi Shiwen, but he didn't wait and instantly chopped out a huge crescent bladiki towards that monster. At this time, the warriors present in the nearby locations finally discovered the monster and started to shout loudly to warn everyone. "Monster, monster!" Chapter 68 Fire Lin Beast, "Monster, monster is here!" Someone shouted crazily and suddenly the whole Keojiaji town shook with numerous warriors rushing out with torches in their hands. But this monster was ridiculously strong. Although Yi Zaiwen's blade attack was hasty, but it was still powerful enough to bisect a master of peak Hotian 9th stage. However, it still couldn't break the defense of the monster and could only put a scratch on its scales. Yi Zaiwen's sudden attack had scared it, and it had jumped back and ran away, because the warriors from Chao family had also started to arrive at the scene. Many warriors started to pursue after that monster, but it was too fast and fled in a blink of an eye. However, during its escape, several warriors had been caught off guard and were torn apart by that monster. No one was able to stop this monster. Phew! Suddenly, a loud shout spread over and Dai Zaiwa's figure flew down from a nearby roof. 100 stages God Fist. Dai Xiaohua blasted a punch with a terrifying strength which instantly vibrated the air and rushed after the monster. Boom! The massive strength present in Dai Zaiwa's attack directly crashed into the monster's body. Bang! The scales on the body of the monster immediately shattered. Dai Zaiwa's attack undoubtedly showed a completely different strength thanks to the condensed Jun Qi of a Xiantian second stage master. The monster was in a severe pain inflicted by this attack and wanted to stop and wreak havoc on the perpetrators, but it knew that Dai Xiaohua was not someone it could easily take on. It immediately picked up speed and taking advantage of the dark night sky, it immediately fled away. It looked as if a red and black flame was passing gently but also swiftly across the sky. Dai Xiaohua chased after it, but after a while, it had started to slowly pull away and leave him behind. He was tyrannically powerful compared to this monster, especially his fist technique was incredibly powerful, but that was not the case with his agility skill. Although, he had practiced a very powerful agility technique, but it had showed its inferiority at this critical time. The so-called law of biting off more than one could chew. Dai Xiaohua had practiced a very powerful Xiantian-level fist technique to a profound realm, and he had spent most of his time on practicing 100 stages God Fist, and by spending less time on practicing his agility technique, his agility skill had become inferior. Also, the speed of this monster was at a terrifying level and most people could only see red and black shadows flying at an insane speed. Dai Xiaohua bitterly stopped. Unfortunately, at that time, he was far away from the monster, otherwise he had the confidence of stopping it. At this time, all of a sudden, accompanied with a gust of wind and a sharp whistling sound, a blurred figure instantly crossed Dai Xiaohua and chased after the monster. Dai Xiaohua immediately recognized that this figure undoubtedly belonged to Yi Shiwen, whose stature was smoothly and elegantly traversing while constantly flashing towards that monster. Dai Xiaohua could not help but be secretly surprised at Yi Zaiwen's amazing agility skill. Biting off more than one could chew was only a truth for other people, but this logic didn't apply on Yi Shiwen, because even geniuses needed several years to completely master a martial art. But what about Yi Shiwen? For Yi Shiwen, so long as there were enough spirit stones, he would be able to fully master any martial arts in a very short amount of time. This was the reason why both his blade and agility skills were exceptionally strong. After only a few minutes of pursuit, Yi Shiwen had already left Keojiaji town behind, and while chasing after the monster, he had finally entered the mountain forest. Don't run away like a coward, stay behind and fight with me. Yi Shiwen shouted, and his blade chopped out a bright blade light which shone like a faint moonlight and instantly illuminated the entire forest, while rushing towards the monster. Roar! The monster was anxious, and with a loud roar, its stature transversely shifted sideways with an incredible speed and dodged Yi Zaiwen's Daoqi. The monster turned around and stared fiercely at Yi Shiwen. Its two lantern-sized eyes flashed ominously and were firmly locked on Yi Shiwen. Then it lifted its face up towards the sky and roared loudly. An ominous aura started to overflow from its body and openly disseminate everywhere. Yi Shiwen noticed that it was actually a Xiantian-level demon beast, and he didn't know about its species. The monster opened its big mouth, blowing a foul smell on Yi Zaiwen's face, followed by a surge of blue flames coming out of its mouth that instantly burned through the air and soared towards Yi Shiwen to sear him. Whoosh! Yi Shiwen suddenly jumped up high in the sky, directly over the monster, and easily dodged those blue flames. Roar! The monster raised its head and opened up its big mouth to bite. You are courting death. Yi Zaiwen's long blade instantly chopped out a dazzling blade light that looked as if the stars were falling from the sky, and it severely cut into the body of that monster. Missing Moon Beheader. The strength of 3 dragons completely unleashed, and Yi Zaiwen's total strength surpassed the terrifying force of 10,000 Jin and instantly concentrated on a single point of attack. Bang! With a sound of metal clashing, Yi Zaiwen's blade attack, containing massive strength of 3 dragons, directly clashed into the monster's body and sent it rolling down on the ground, but it immediately stood up the very next instant. Yi Shiwen was flabbergasted because the defensive strength of its scales was unbelievably terrifying. Demon beasts generally held the advantage of possessing tough bodies compared to humans, but this extent of toughness was definitely rare. Yi Zaiwen's most powerful blade attack, endowed with the strength of 3 dragons, had actually just chipped a few pieces of the scales on its body. It could be said that this monster had the strongest defense among all of the demon beasts that Yi Shiwen had seen so far in his lifetime. It was such a terrifying demon beast that even attacks from a master of the Xiantian first stage couldn't break its defense, and this was the reason why Chao family could only leave this monster running amok. Yi Shiwen had also tried out its strength and confirmed that it had already reached the peak of Xiantian first stage, and even a master of peak Xiantian first stage was not its match and would only die if tried to fight with it head-on. The strength of this monster was comparable to that of a master of Xiantian second stage. So, even an anomaly like Yi Shiwen, whose strength was equivalent to that of a master of Xiantian second stage, could only fight with it on equal terms. However, it was impossible for him to defeat it at his current strength. After taking an attack from Yi Zaiwen's blade, the monster suffered small injuries and was in pain. It had realized that dealing with Yi Shiwen would not be easy. The explosive strength in its limbs burst out and it suddenly leaped up and dashed into the mountain forest at an insane speed. It had actually become even faster than before. Yi Shiwen couldn't reach its insane speed and could only give up. Yi Shiwen walked back along the same route. At this time, Kaojiaji town was already brightly lit, because the sudden attack of monster had alerted everyone and people could be seen walking around inside the small town. Many people had gathered at the entrance of Chao family's manor and a lot more had rushed there to see Yi Shiwen and had already encircled him. "Brother Yi, what happened? Did you catch up to that monster?" Dai Xiaohua asked. "No, it got away." Yi Shiwen did not want to reveal too many details of his fight with the monster. It's a pity because that was actually a fire lin beast. I did not expect to actually see a fire lin beast here, Dai Xiaohua said. Chapter 69. Strange. It's a pity because that was definitely the fire lin beast. I actually did not expect to see a fire lin beast here, Dai Xiaohua said. Fire lin beast, that monster was a fire lin beast? No wonder my attacks didn't work on it. Its scales are way too hard and I think even those famous precious armors are nothing in comparison. If only I could get those scales to make armor out of them, then I won't have to fear for my safety anymore. Those warriors were excited and still discussing about how Fire Lin Beast had been unable to wreak havoc like earlier and had been easily driven out this time. But, right now, Yi Shiwen was recalling the information he had about Fire Lin Beast in his mind. Fire Lin Beast was a very famous and unique type of demon beast that would take birth in a magma pool and could only survive an extremely hot place during its birth. There were rumors that Fire Lin Beast contained the blood of ancient Fire Qilin Beast in its body, but this was only a rumor and no one knew whether this was true or false. After all, like dragons, unicorns were also only a legend. Just like wyverns were an inferior species of ancient dragons, Fire Lin Beast was rumored to be an inferior species of ancient Fire Qilin species and contained their blood. Adults of Fire Lin Beast species were able to surpass the Xiantian realm, so it could be deduced from its cultivation level that the said monster of Kaojiaji town, that was outrageously powerful and had been wreaking havoc for all this time, was actually not an adult Fire Lin Beast, and perhaps had taken birth not long ago. Directly born with its cultivation level in the Xiantian realm? Yi Shiwen had mixed feelings after hearing this and sighed, because with respect to these unique demon beasts, the human race was really weak. Except for the wisdom, there was nothing else which could support the fact that humans were stronger than these unique beasts. But even so, humans still occupied the major areas of Zhen Wujie world and were also its true leaders. Today, I would like to thank all of you for your efforts. Because of your presence here, We were able to scare away that Fire Lin beast, and this incident did not end up in a tragedy. At this time, a handsome middle-aged man came out from the Chow family's mansion and said while cupping one hand into the other across the chest, "Lord is so polite. There is no need to stand on ceremonies, it's our job." This man was actually the Lord of Chow family, named Chow Jinbiao. Anyway, today, our Chow family escaped unharmed and the credit for that goes to all of you, so I will personally make sure to generously reward each and every one of you. Chow Jinbiao said, "Tomorrow, our Chow family will start an operation to eliminate that Fire Lin beast and I wish for all of you to join us in this operation." Chow Jinbiao said, "No problem. Of course, we will participate in this operation." Many warriors laughed and immediately accepted the proposal of Chow Jinbiao to go and eliminate the Fire Lin beast. The beast had been driven away so easily and this had increased their confidence. After all, even though a few people had died, but the Fire Lin beast had to actually flee for its life. Furthermore, a mere Hotian realm expert like Yi Shiwen had been able to chase after it and driven it away. However, Yi Shiwen was not so optimistic because just now, he actually sensed that the cultivation level of Chow Jinbiao was already in the Xiantian realm. Although he had camouflaged his breath quite well, but he had accidentally leaked a very small amount of his breath and that had been instantly sensed by Yi Shiwen. Think of breath like an aura which is directly proportional to one's cultivation level. After practicing the restraining breath technique, Yi Shiwen had become very sensitive to the aura of other people and by virtue of a person's aura, he had been able to sense their cultivation level and strength. And Chow Jinbiao turned out to be a Xiantian master but he seemed injured, because his aura was very unstable when Yi Shiwen had sensed it. But even a wounded Xiantian master like Chow Jinbiao would not be unable to retaliate if a Fire Lin beast was wreaking havoc and killing members of his family. Moreover, this Fire Lin beast had particularly attacked the members of Chow family in the past, so there was definitely an inside story behind this. Two heroes, I thank you for driving away that Fire Lin beast this time. Chow Jinbiao said. He had certainly seen how Dai Xiaohua and Yi Shiwen had scared away the Fire Lin beast, and one of them was only a master of Hotian realm and was simply not strong enough to defeat a Fire Lin beast. Lord is so polite. Dai Xiaohua waved his hands and said as if he did not care. You're welcome. Yi Shiwen said. Chow Jinbiao saw that the two of them had started to talk to each other. He did not stay there for too long and after talking for a while with other warriors he finally left. Hey, I can't believe that it really was the Fire Lin beast. Dai Xiaohua chuckled and said after he saw Chow Jinbiao leaving. And there's also that blue flaming flower. Gee, I am afraid it's going to get very lively around here. Dai Xiaohua excitedly said. Didn't I say that blue flaming flower really exists? And the appearance of Fire Lin beast has confirmed my anticipation. I once read a record in a book and it said that Fire Lin beast was actually associated with the treasure, blue flaming flower. Shortly after the birth of a Fire Lin beast's cub, a blue flaming flower would mature on the place of its birth and so long as the Fire Lin beast cub swallowed this flower, it would be able to have step-by-step growth from infancy to adulthood. Growing period. Yi Shiwen frowned. An infant Fire Lin beast had been so difficult to deal with, not to mention, it was still in the growth period and no one could guess about the extent of its growth once it reached adulthood. Yi Shiwen felt in his heart that fortunately, it was not in the adulthood right now, otherwise, the only option left for them would be either to escape or face massacre at the hands of this unique demon beast that contained the blood of ancient Fire Qilin beast, making it too formidable to deal with. Hey, I'm going to get ready, because it's going to be a lot of fun tomorrow. Dai Xiaohua cupped his hand into the other across his chest and said, Brother Yi, I have things to do so I will go ahead first. Looking at the departing figure of Dai Xiaohua, Yi Shiwen did not stay in the Chow family manor for too long and returned back to the inn to start practicing. Yi Shiwen always felt that there was something strange here, that things were not as simple as he had previously thought, and it turned that he was right. Even an infant Fire Lin beast was already at the peak of Xiantian first stage and was powerful enough to make everyone run for their lives, and could even kill some Xiantian second stage masters as well. After the growth period of Fire Lin beast would complete, It would be difficult to describe how formidable it would become in its adulthood. It could be said that this whole matter had become quite scary. However, no matter what, to enhance one's strength, dealing with all the troubles was the way of the king. Night passed in a blink of an eye and Yi Shiwen had fully concentrated on practicing, but this night had become a sleepless night for many experts, and the reason behind this was the identity of that monster, being revealed as the formidable Fire Lin Beast. The existence of Fire Lin Beast and blue flaming fire was enough to attract the attention of many experts. After practicing all night, Yi Shiwen finally stopped and went downstairs only to find it crowded with many new warriors, and compared to the warriors he had seen yesterday, this crowd consisted of a lot of stronger experts of Xiantian realm. All of them were covered with dust, and it seemed that they had apparently rushed to the Kaojiaji town after hearing about the Fire Lin Beast and blue flaming flower. Chapter 70 Rising Winds. The entire inn was filled with a tense atmosphere. Did you hear that? I heard that even Tianhui City's city guard government has dispatched an expert, and I also heard that a few decades ago, that expert was famous by the name of Chen Taizhou in the nearby areas. How was he dispatched? Didn't the rumors say that Chen Taizhou is already dead? Several years ago, Chen Taizhou was a famous Xiantian master in this area, but later, rumors spread out that he died. I did not expect that he would actually conceal himself and work for city guard government. Furthermore, last night, someone saw that Xiaoyang Sect's young master, Wu Xiaoyang, has also entered the town and has obviously also come for the Fire Lin Beast. Gee, with the arrival of so many Xiantian masters, I am afraid it's going to be a lot of fun. Yesterday I did not know, but a big personality was present among us. Everyone knows of the Dai family, right? Gee, yesterday, the most powerful expert of the current generation of Dai family, Dai Xiaohua, displayed a superb performance of 100 stages God Fist to a profound level and scared away that Fire Lin Beast. Yes, I also heard that a young man went out alone to kill the Fire Lin Beast and came back unharmed. Gee, he must also be a famous master. A discussion was open inside the inn and Yi Shiwen was quietly having breakfast in a corner. No one knew that Yi Shiwen was the young man in their discussions, who had alone chased after the Fire Lin Beast and had come back alive. But Yi Shiwen had accidentally heard and was surprised to find out that Dai Xiaohua was actually a person of the famous Dai family. Dai family had a well-known influence in the nearby regions and was backed by one of the four great sects of Great Yu State, Lu Yunqing. It had a rather special influence among the four great sects, and not just because it contained a wide range of martial arts, but also because the ancestors of Lu Yunqing Lord's family had founded the Great Yu Empire alongside the first emperor. Also, because of the relationship between the teachings of their forefathers, among the four great sects, Lu Yunqing was most intimate with the imperial family. Basically, it could be said that they were deeply interrelated with the royal family. Dai family was a branch of Lu Yunqing and its huge influence had spread throughout the Great Yu State like the other three respected families, backed by Lu Yunqing. Also, an ancestor of Dai family was also one of the four efficient subordinates of Lu Yunqing and had served under the king during the foundation of the empire. Yesterday, Yi Shiwen could have guessed about Dai Xiaohua's background, but his attention was riveted on the Fire Lin Beast. And Dai Xiaohua had also made very good impression on him and had proved himself worthy of a close friendship, so he didn't think too much about this matter. But even so, it was nothing. And was he not also the strongest disciple in the younger generation of Qingfeng Mountain's Yiyuan school? This time, no matter what, he must fight and strive on, and during the chaos caused by so many powerful masters, he might have a chance to score a victory. After a while later, a warrior of the Chao family entered the inn and walked straight to the front of Yi Shiwen and said, "Master Yi, our Chao family's lord has especially sent me to invite you for today's operation of elimination of monster. Are you ready?" Yi Shiwen nodded. "Then please come with me." Yi Shiwen followed the warrior of Chao family out of the inn, and at this time, a buzzing sound of an intense discussion broke out in the inn. He was that young man, named Yi Shiwen, who chased alone after the Fire Lin Beast last night. I never imagined him to be so skinny. Stupid, a warrior must not be judged by his appearance. If strength was decided by the physique of a master, then all of the masters would have iron tower-like physiques. Yes, yesterday I saw an idiot provoking Yi Shiwen, but instead he got nailed to the wall with a chopstick. Where does this Yi Shiwen come from? Don't you know? At this time, a traveling merchant opened his mouth and said, "This Yi Shiwen is this year's peerless genius from Iyuan School." A genius from Iyuan School? That's not right, although Iyuan School is somewhat far from here, but I know of Yi Feng, Zhang Yang et al., but why have I never heard of Yi Shiwen before? A knowledgeable man asked. You do not know about it? The traveling merchant said with a smug look on his face, that Yi Shiwen is a rising genius of Iyuan School. He won the Inner Disciples competition and easily became a champion of Iyuan School's inner sect. After winning the championship, he again stole the spotlight in the Core Disciples competition by beheading a Xiantian master. Right now, he is recognized as Iyuan School's strongest top disciple in the younger generation. Yi Shiwen did not know that the whole inn had started to talk about his achievements. He followed the Chao family's warrior and soon arrived at the manor of Chao family. At this time, the manor was already crowded with experts and all of them were exuding a dangerous aura. However, soon, two people caught his attention and at a corner, an old man was standing under the tree's shade, with a cold look on his face, and right then, Yi Shiwen also noticed his pitch-black iron-like hands. Yi Shiwen immediately knew that this guy should be Chen Taizhou. Although he seemed to be standing still and alone, but no one was daring to approach him because he seemed more like a beast than a martial artist. On the other side, there was an entirely different scene. A youth clad in red robe, holding a sword in his hand, was standing with a smile on his face while surrounded by a multitude of warriors, trying to get close to him. After all, although the influence of Shaoyang sect was not comparable to Yuan School, Dai family and other great sects, but it was still not a small power because 3 Xiantian masters had assumed personal command over the Shaoyang sect, and it had definitely a powerful influence in this neighborhood that couldn't be ignored. Yi Shiwen also found that the strength level of these warriors was obviously more than the warriors of Qingfeng mountain area and was really closer to the warriors found in the central regions of Great Yu State. Brother Yi. At this time, the voice of Dai Xiaohua entered Yi Ziwen's ears. He turned to look and actually saw Dai Xiaohua running towards him. I never thought that Brother Yi was actually a brilliant student of Yuan School. You tried to conceal this from me and I feel bitter about it. When did you become so bashful? You and I became good friends without worrying about our background identity and status. Yi Shiwen said with a smile. Ha ha ha, exactly, you said well, looked pleasing to the eyes of each other, then you and I became good friends without worrying about our background identity and status. Dai Xiaohua laughed and said, Gentlemen. Chapter 71. To hit with hands or fists, gentlemen. At this time, the lord of Chao family, Chao Jinbiao, came out and cupped one hand in the other across his chest and said, Today, you all have accepted our invitation and it is great honor for our small town. Lord Chao, don't mention it, because today we have come for the matter related to the Fire Lin beast. A warrior said. Everyone nodded, though this was an operation initiated by the Chao family. But if there were no Fire Lin beast and blue flaming flower in the picture, then who would have come at Chao family's invitation? Good, this monster extermination operation will now officially begin. Everyone please follow us. Chao Jinbiao did not speak much and immediately began the operation. Led by the members of Chao family, the large team of mighty warriors headed towards the place where the underground magma pool was located. Yi Shiwen and Dai Xiaohua were also present in the crowd and they soon went out of the town. All of these warriors were fast and within half an hour, they arrived under a hillside. This hillside was not high, only about 56 meters, but there was a big hole on its top and one could see a very dark bottomless place from above. The magma pool was present beneath it. Yi Shiwen quickly followed the crowd into the cave. After entering the cave, they suddenly felt a heat wave blowing and could even hear the sound of lava rolling and boiling inside cave, accompanied with the bubbling sound. Yi Shiwen reckoned that maybe this magma pool had not formed by an active volcano, but it was hard to say. After all, this could only be calculated based on thousands of years of volcanic action. But now, It seemed to have been formed from a volcano, and that must have happened a very long time ago. When the team went deeper into the cave, the temperature of the ground started to increase gradually, and some of the warriors had to wrap their feet with zhenqi, otherwise the heat would have burnt their feet. It was getting darker inside the cave, but everyone here was an expert and could clearly see in just a little bit of light. Moreover, as they were approaching the magma pool, the cave had gradually started to illuminate with red light. The team continued to walk in the direction from where the red light was coming, and only after a while they saw a huge magma pool, filled with rolling and bubbling red-hot magma. Everyone clearly saw that right at the center of the magma pool, there was a single blue flaming lotus, and seemed to be camouflaged with its color similar to the color of the surrounding magma. People could not help but be secretly amazed. They never expected to actually see a flower growing in the magma, and it could survive under such a high temperature. That was definitely not ordinary. They saw the entirely crimson-colored blue flaming lotus, and they also clearly saw that it contained lotus seeds as well. Haha, it's actually the blue flaming lotus. A warrior laughed and said. After seeing the flower, the warrior picked up a huge rock and suddenly threw it into the magma pool. Splash! The rock fell into the magma, and that warrior immediately jumped and stepped on that huge rock, and without waiting even for an instant, he suddenly leaped again towards the blue flaming lotus to plunder it. Everyone saw that once that warrior tried to grasp the blue flaming lotus in his hand, he started screaming over and over while his hands had instantly burnt to a terrifying extent. His body fiddled, and as there nothing to support his falling body, he fell directly into the magma and screamed pitifully before completely melting. He really was courting death. Many of the warriors who had fortunately not rushed like him, said with a look of disdain on their faces. Yi Shiwen frowned at this troublesome situation. The blue flaming lotus was completed, surrounded by red-hot magma, and there were no places to step over to approach it, and looking at the scary level of temperature of the magma, even a foot, properly wrapped in reinforced zhenqi, would instantly melt and disappear once stepped into the magma, which was absolutely terrifying. Let me try. At this time, the young master of Shaoyang sect, Wu Shaoyang, shouted loudly and instantly threw a red double-edged sword which flew out skimming over the magma pool, and Wu Shaoyang immediately flew up, and as lithe as the swallow, he descended over his sword and rushed towards the blue flaming lotus to snatch it. Shwa! The treasured sword passed swiftly over the blue flaming lotus and instantly cut down the entire flower while flying vigorously through the air, but at this time, when he stretched out his hands to firmly hold the blue flaming lotus, it started to emit buzzing sound after coming in contact with his hands. The ultra-high temperature had started to melt his zhenqi, though fortunately, he was already a master of the Xiantian realm, and his Xiantian zhenqi was far more powerful than the Hotian zhenqi. If a Hotian realm warrior had held this lotus in his hand, then it would have instantly corroded his zhenqi and burnt his hand. Wu Shaoyang soon flew skimming over the magma pool to the other side, when at this time he heard a shrill piercing sound and saw a huge rock flying towards him at a lightning speed. Bang! Wu Shaoyang struggled to twist his body in the midair and dodged the rock, which then heavily crashed into the side of the cliff and dug a big hole into it. Chen Tai's Ho, you old bastard, how dare you sneak an attack on me? Wu Shaoyang turned around to look and noticed that it was Chen Tai's Ho who had played this dirty trick on him. Chen Tai's Ho sneered, you better put down the blue flaming lotus. It is not the kind of thing that your Shaoyang sect should meddle with. Wu Shaoyang's complexion got unsightly and he stared fiercely at the Chen Tai's Ho and said, if I say no then your father will lose a son, so I advise you to be little sensible. Years ago, I made a living by traveling around the country when you were just born. Chen Tai's Ho bluntly said, old fool, you want to take advantage of your own seniority. So what if you have practiced for decades? Just you wait and see how I cut you today. Wu Shaoyang had become enraged by Chen Tai's house words. You can try. Chen Tai's Ho sneered and rushed towards Wu Shaoyang. Old stuff, just drop dead already. Wu Shaoyang struck his sword and a terrifying zhenqi instantly rushed out towards Chen Tai's Ho. Boom! Chen Tai's Ho used his hands to directly block and scatter the incoming zhenqi, but at this time, his figure stagnated and it seemed as if he would fall into the magma. He immediately shot his palm, releasing a terrifying chi gene towards the magma. With the help of the opposite reaction force of this attack, his body suddenly bounced back to go up, and like an eagle, he instantly rushed towards Wu Xiaoyang. Even if they had actually come for blue flaming lotus, but this hitting with hands or fists began too quickly, and even the shadow of the Fire Lin beast is nowhere to be seen. Dai Xiaohua said with disdain. Chapter 72 Chao Families Trap Fire Lin Beast? Yi Shiwen shook his head because none of these warriors had really come to help Chao family in exterminating this beast. Almost all had come for the blue flaming lotus, and knowing the benefits of this rare treasure, even a devil would be willing to come as well. As a result of battling with Chen Taizhou, Wu Xiaoyang had no other choice left but to obediently put down the blue flaming lotus. Snatch the blue flaming lotus. Kill! Seeing the fight of Wu Xiaoyang and Chen Taizhou, other warriors suddenly broke out all of a sudden, because they had faced a sudden outbreak of greed in their hearts for the blue flaming lotus. Fighting, killing, all of a sudden, a lot of warriors had already died. Undoubtedly, the greed had manifested itself inside the hearts of these warriors. The aisle to the magma pool was too narrow, and because of that, a lot of warriors had directly fallen into the magma pool and perished instantly. Both Yi Shiwen and Dai Xiaohua were not in a rush like those other warriors, because to them, these people were nothing more than a motley crew and were definitely not a cause of concern, even though some Xiantian masters were also present among these warriors. But, for these two, their only possible opponents could be Chen Taizhou and Wu Xiaoyang, the two Xiantian masters, who were battling each other at the moment. Of course, there was also Chao Jinbiao, the lord of Keojiaji town, and Yi Shiwen had not forgotten that Chao Jinbiao was also a powerful Xiantian master, although injured at the moment. Then suddenly, Yi Shiwen discovered that Chao Jinbiao, who should have been with his team in the middle, had actually disappeared, and this discovery had suddenly made him tensed and surprised at the same time. Chao Jinbiao has disappeared. Yi Shiwen immediately informed Dai Xiaohua. What? Don't tell me he got killed by some warrior. Dai Xiaohua said. No, he disappeared only a moment ago, and I also can't see the members of Chao family. Yi Shiwen said. After listening to what Yi Shiwen had just said, Dai Xiaohua also reacted immediately, because it was really true that the members of Chao family, who were present here only a moment ago, had suddenly disappeared. This is a problem. Dai Xiaohua frowned and said, because the Chao family had used this chaotic situation to their advantage. Confusion, chaos. The crowd of warriors had already rushed to the other side of the magma pool, leaving only Dai Xiaohua and Yi Shiwen behind. Yi Shiwen saw a man rushing to grab the blue flaming lotus, but that man was shot by many concealed weapons, turning his body look like that of a hedgehog. However, before long, everyone started fighting with each other while striving to be first and fearing to be last. When Yi Shiwen was trying to think about his next course of action, suddenly, the whole magma boiled up and a huge shadow jumped out from the magma and swooped down towards the group of warriors, who were fighting with each other until now, and several warriors didn't have enough time to dodge and were instantly killed. Fire Lin Beast. Everyone was stunned after the sudden appearance of Fire Lin Beast. 100 Stages God Fist. Dai Xiaohua shouted and flew towards the beast. His fierce punch shot out the terrifying Quan Jin. Boom! The Quan Jin fiercely collided with the body of Fire Lin Beast, but its grandiose stature moved only a bit. Yi Shiwen also didn't wait and immediately flew across the entire magma pool, then took out his blade and severely chopped out towards the Fire Lin Beast. Fire Lin Beast screamed and several of its scales immediately shattered. Fire Lin Beast did not stop, but it immediately pounced towards the blue flaming flower. You beast! Wu Xiaoyang shouted loudly and his sword danced out, releasing a long thick sword key which instantly plugged into the front of the Fire Lin Beast. Chen Taizhou also didn't wait and his fist rumbled, producing an air-crackling sound, and the profound skill of Chen Taizhou directly struck the body of Fire Lin Beast, and it bellowed and rolled to the side. But the Fire Lin Beast did not give up. It immediately stood up and rolled to the side of Blue Flaming Lotus and bit off a major part of the lotus and swallowed it. You filthy beast! At this time, the people were angry, seeing that the Fire Lin Beast had actually eaten half of the Blue Flaming Lotus. The Fire Lin beast lifted its face upward and gave out a loud roar and rushed towards a group of Hotian-level warriors, and almost in an instant, these Hotian-level warriors had been totally obliterated. Kill, ha ha ha, kill them for me. At this time, everyone heard a loud battle cry coming from a distant place, but this voice was familiar to Yi Shiwen. It was the voice of Chao Jinbiao, Lord of Keojiaji Town. Everyone saw Chao Jinbiao and two other experts walking with him towards the magma pool from far away. These two experts were actually Xiantian-level masters. One was a middle-aged man who looked smaller than Chao Jinbiao, and another was a skinny old man. Yi Shiwen immediately recognized these two experts, as someone from the Chao family had mentioned about them earlier to Yi Shiwen. These two were the major pillars that supported the Chao family on their shoulders. The middle-aged man was the younger brother Chao Jinbiao, called Chao Jinshui, while the old man was an elder of Keojiaji Town, called Chao Xing. No one had expected to find so many Xiantian masters in a small town like Keojiaji. Lord Chao, what is the meaning of this? Chen Taizhou asked. Haha, of course, this is to kill you all. Today you all must die. A warrior of Chao family laughed and said, You dare to set me up, are you not afraid of our punitive army? Chen Taizhou said in a cold voice. Do you think you can escape? You are only the first wave of Xiantian masters that we have attracted so far, and then later, more will come, and after beheading all of the Xiantian masters of the nearby areas, our Chao family will gain the biggest influence in this locality. A warrior of the Chao family said, And who will know that we were behind this? All they will know that you all died at the hands of the Fire Lin beast. So, this Fire Lin beast, Dai Xiaohua's complexion immediately paled. Yes, so you finally realized. In order to subdue this beast, we had to put a lot of efforts. The warrior laughed and said. Yi Shiwen suddenly understood. This explained why Chao Jinbiao's breath was unstable. So, he had actually been injured while taming this Fire Lin beast. In other words, Chao family really wanted to attract great masters of Shaoyang sect and Tianhui town, while Yi Shiwen as well as Dai Xiaohua were also their targets. You talk too much. Chao Jinshui shouted and said, Kill them all, and once we are done with them, our Chao family would gain the top influence in this area. Kill! Kill! Chao family's men gave out a battle cry, while the complexion of those who had been invited by the Chao family had considerable paled, but now, this had become a matter of life and death for them, and they immediately clashed with the members of the Chao family, and a bloody war started in the cave. Yi Shiwen suddenly moved quickly, and in an instant, he was next to the blue flaming lotus. He bent down and caught the root of the blue flaming lotus, although the major part of the lotus had been eaten by the Fire Lin beast, but even just the root was very beneficial. But before Yi Shiwen could even think, a huge shadow leaped towards him and mercilessly hit Yi Shiwen, and sent him flying. Splash! Yi Shiwen fell into the magma pool. Chapter 73, Breaking Through to the Xiantian Realm, Brother Yi. Dai Xiaohua said anxiously, You filthy beast! Dai Xiaohua had become extremely furious when he saw Yi Shiwen being pushed into the magma pool, without any chance to dodge an attack from the Fire Lin beast. He furiously shot out 100 stages God Fist at the beast, and it suddenly screamed. His Quan Jin broke through the layers of scales and blasted into its body under the scales. Dai Xiaohua's Xiantian level strength had reached its peak, caused by his anger for the beast, and the tyrannical power of his fist technique had truly manifested itself. However, at this time, Dai Xiaohua was unable to chase and kill the Fire Lin beast, because Chao Jinbiao and his family had started an onslaught on them, and Lord Chao Jinbiao was a terrifying Xiantian master, so Dai Xiaohua had to pay attention to them as well. 3 Xiantian masters of the Chao family were already well prepared to obstruct Dai Xiaohua, Chen Taizhou and Wu Xiaoyang. But Dai Xiaohua was not afraid of these 3 Xiantian masters of the Chao family, but at present, the most terrifying was the fact that Fire Lin beast had already swallowed a major part of the blue flaming lotus and had now entered into transformation period. If this situation dragged on a little longer and the beast was not killed before the completion of its transformation, then no one would survive. The complexion of Dai Xiaohua, Chen Taizhou and Wu Xiaoyang had suddenly paled because they never thought that Chao family would actually prepare such a vicious trap. When I go out, I will let my father take care of you Chao family bastards. Wu Xiaoyang gritted his teeth and said in a cold voice. Well, that is if you get a chance to go out. Wu Xiaoyang's opponent Chao Jinshui sneered and said. At the same time, the aura of Fire Lin Beast had started to increase rapidly, and with a loud bang, it suddenly broke through the peak of Xiantian first stage and entered into the Xiantian second stage. However, its aura continued to rise and didn't stop. Run, we will make a run for it, and as long as there is one of us who manages to escape from this massacre, Chao family will be exterminated. Chen Taizhou finally shouted these words to collaborate with the two Xiantian masters, Dai Xiaohua and Wu Xiaoyang. As for those other warriors, they were like ants in his eyes, and he simply did not care about them. Run, where will you run to? Chao Jinbiao laughed and said. The strength of the Fire Lin Beast had already increased dramatically. Its loud roars were echoing in the cave, and its eyes had become blood-red, full of blood and violence, and its gigantic body suddenly leaped towards Chen Taizhou. After entering into the Xiantian second stage, the strength of the Fire Lin Beast had increased to a terrifying level, and with just a swoop, it had knocked down Chen Taizhou on the ground. Die, you filthy beast! Chen Taizhou shouted loudly, and his pitch-black palm instantly shot out, containing a terrifying strength, which caused a loud air explosion. Bang! The Fire Lin Beast directly lifted up its claw and fiercely stepped upon his hand. Kara! With a sound of breaking bones, the bones inside Chen Taizhou's hand immediately shattered after the Fire Lin Beast had directly stepped on his hand. Chen Taizhou screamed in a pitiful voice because its foot was extremely heavy. The beast again stepped on his breastbone and smashed it. Ah! Chen Taizhou screamed, but right then, a raging fire suddenly discharged out from the body of Fire Lin Beast and instantly corroded the Xiantian Zhenqi that was wrapped around his body, and then burnt him to cinders. Ha ha ha, today, no one's going anywhere. Chao Xing and the Fire Lin Beast rushed towards Wu Xiaoyang and Dai Xiaohua respectively. Suddenly, the whole magma pool began to boil up, and an incredibly terrifying aura flushed out of the magma pool, and an innumerable influx of frenzied Lingqi formed a huge bubble in the magma. The complexion of all the Xiantian masters present there immediately turned pale. They were all familiar with this scene because this was a breakthrough into the Xiantian realm. The complexion of the people from Chao family especially became pale, because they couldn't comprehend that how could someone break through to the Xiantian realm inside the magma. Dai Xiaohua was delighted, and he seemed to have understood what was happening. Hurry up, kill them all! Chao Jinbiao immediately shouted. Boom! Before they could start the massacre, a loud explosion sound came from the magma, and a large amount of magma spattered in all directions. Except the Fire Lin Beast, everyone else quickly used all their might to jump back and escape from the flying magma. They absolutely could not afford to touch it, otherwise, they would be roasted alive. A figure covered in red-hot magma jumped out from the magma, and the first one to react was the Fire Lin Beast, which immediately pounced towards that figure with its blood-red eyes, full of hatred, looking at that figure. But the Fire Lin Beast actually saw an incomparably radiant red-hot long blade flashing. The long blade instantly pierced through the air and maliciously chopped into its body. Bang! The whole cave echoed with a loud sound of metal clash, and in the very next instant, the Fire Lin Beast screamed and its gigantic body directly flew far away by this blade attack. There was huge crack on the red scales covering its body, and the blood was gushing out of the wound. This was the first time someone had cut open its scales to this extent. People were giving dumbfounded looks to that person's figure standing in the midair. They couldn't believe their eyes that in an instant, the tables had turned in their favor, and the beast on which the Chao family was putting its bet had actually been injured and sent flying by a single blade attack. It was hard for people to accept this favorable turn of events in such a short time. At this time, the shadow descended from the sky and landed on one side of the magma pool. Brother Yi, you're all right? Dai Xiaohua said with a look of surprise on his face. Wu Xiaoyang was also surprised and looked at Yi Shiwen, although he and Yi Shiwen were unfamiliar, but this time, The unexpected appearance of Yi Shiwen was more like reinforcement to their side. Yi Shiwen nodded towards the two men, with a blade in his hand, and stared coldly towards the people of Chao family. For Yi Shiwen, only he himself knew about the life and death experience that he had just gone through, and his survival could be said as a narrow escape. Falling into magma pool implied certain death. The Houtian Jinqi simply couldn't stop the invasion of magma, and even Xiantian Jinqi would burn up quickly, so there was no way to continue to resist it. So, when he had fallen into the magma, he decided to swallow the root of blue flaming lotus at this critical moment, and along with it, he also took out the Xiantian pellet and began to forcefully impact on his inner state in order to enter into the Xiantian realm. Only after the impact to his innate state, an endless amount of Xiantian Jinqi generated inside his body, and he was able to escape. Yi Shiwen had no other ways to escape from the magma, and without a breakthrough he would have burned inside the magma. But fortunately, heavens would not fail a man. Although he had only swallowed the root of blue flaming lotus, but his body had still gained the fire spirit characteristics. His anti-fire resistance had greatly enhanced, and this was the reason why the magma had not caused any injuries to his body, and he had been able to stay in the magma for so long without getting burnt. Moreover, he also regarded this as a blessing in disguise, because from now on, flames would not be able to burn him due to greatly increased resistance to fire. Also, he would be able to practice a fire attribute power technique and would gain twice the result with half the effort. This was the motive that had attracted all the warriors to come here. Chao Jinshui said with an astonished look in his eyes. "Thanks to you, I'm not dead." Yi Shiwen, with a calm smile on his face, said, "And I'm afraid that today, your Chao family will be exterminated." "You little bastard, how dare you threaten me?" Chao Jinshui roared loudly, "Today I'll kill you." Chao Jinshui roared and rushed towards Yi Shiwen and shot both his palms in succession, releasing a terrifying Jinqi, which endlessly stirred the air in the surrounding. Overconfident. Yi Shiwen sneered and instantly shot Rushing Thunder Hand, although Rushing Thunder Hand was just a lower-level power technique, but in the hands of Yi Shiwen, it had reached a profound level, and even if he used to mainly practice Cold Moon Beheader, but he had not put down the Rushing Thunder Hand, because it was simple, quite handy, powerful, and with the conversion of half of his Jinqi into Xiantian Jinqi. And accompanied with the strength of 11 dragons, how could a Xiantian expert like Chao Jinshui, who had transformed only 10% of this Jinqi into the Xiantian Jinqi, be his opponent? Boom! Yi Ziwen's palm rumbled and released an intermittent thunderous explosion sound which echoed throughout the cave. Bang! With a heart-shaking breaking sound, all of the bones in Chao Jinshui's arm had been instantly broken under the terrifying strength of 11 dragons, present in Yi Ziwen's attack, that had instantly turned the bones present in Chao Jinshui's arm into powder. Ah! Chao Jinshui screamed while his body had been sent flying upside down by the terrifying force present in Yi Ziwen's attack that had also injured his internal organs. How is this possible? Everyone was stunned after watching this scene, because no one thought that a Xiantian master like Chao Jinshui would be unable to stop even a single palm attack from Yi Shiwen. But Yi Shiwen had just now entered into the Xiantian realm, then how had his strength increased so much? However, it was obvious that Yi Shiwen did not intend to show mercy on him. His long blade instantly chopped out a crescent-shaped bladiki towards Chao Jinshui and split him in half in the midair. "Jinshui!" Chao Jinbiao indignantly roared, "I'll kill you!" Seeing his younger brother getting killed right in front of his eyes, it seemed as if Chao Jinbiao had become totally insane and frantic and suddenly rushed towards Yi Shiwen. However, at this time, the Fire Lin beast also rushed towards Yi Shiwen and spit out high-temperature flames from its mouth at him. From the other side, Chao Xing also rushed towards Yi Shiwen. They must kill Yi Shiwen, because if they did not kill him, then the news about their conspiracy would leak out and numerous angry forces would come to destroy Chao family. Yi Shiwen sneered and took out his long blade, and in just a step, his figure suddenly disappeared. Now that he had become a Xiantian master, not only just half of his Jinqi had transformed into the Xiantian Jinqi, but his strength and speed had also progressed by leaps and bounds. Breaking through to the Xiantian realm could be considered as the first big transformation for a martial artist, and it caused a tremendous change in the physical body as well. Shua! Yi Shiwen instantly appeared in front of the Fire Lin beast, then stretched out his left hand and directly squeezed the hot flames spit out by the Fire Lin beast, and his right fist instantly punched out, with the Xiantian Jinqi attached to the top of the fist, and instantly condensed into a terrifying Quan Jin and fiercely smashed into its head. Although the speed of Fire Lin beast was very fast from the start, and after consuming the blue flaming lotus, its speed had increased even further, but it still could not avoid Yi Zaiwen's fist. Bang! The scales on the face of the Fire Lin beast had immediately shattered by Yi Zaiwen's punch. Boom! The gigantic body of the Fire Lin beast flew up again and severely hit at the top of a rock, generating a tremendous impulse which directly crushed its bones. It rolled on to one side while wailing incessantly. Right then, while Yi Zaiwen's attention was diverted towards the beast, Chao Jinbiao thought of this as an opportunity, and his figure suddenly appeared behind Yi Shiwen with a trace of madness in his eyes. Chao Jinbiao was carrying a spear which instantly shot out like a shadow of a dragon, suffused with a terrifying undulation, and instantly advanced towards Yi Shiwen. Smack! It seemed as if Yi Shiwen had eyes on his back as well. He instantly turned around and grabbed the spear with one hand. Bang! After catching the spear so effortlessly, Yi Shiwen took a step and instantly appeared in front of Chao Jinbiao and slapped a palm on his chest. Bang! Chao Jinbiao solidly suffered a direct hit on his chest from Yi Zaiwen's palm, but he didn't possess the incredible defense of the Fire Lin beast, and the strength of 11 dragons directly blasted into his chest and instantly turned his internal organs into mincemeat. He died a violent death in a flash. It took a long time to explain all of this, but it had all happened very fast, and at this time, the last remaining Xiantian master of the Chao family, Chao Xing, had become terrified of Yi Shiwen after he had seen the two other Xiantian masters of his family getting killed so easily at the hands of a Yi Shiwen who had just entered into the Xiantian realm. This was something incomprehensible to him. However, at this time, it was too late to escape. Yi Shiwen instantly threw the spear with such an incredible strength that it immediately reached Chao Xing and pierced his body, and the immense force present in Yi Zaiwen's throw directly carried Chao Xing, along with the spear, into the magma, where he instantly burned to charcoal. Chapter 75 Yuan Main Sect. In a very short period of time, the Fire Lin beast had been crippled, and the 3 Xiantian masters of the Chao family had all been killed single-handedly by Yi Shiwen. The sudden turn of events had left all of the warriors dumbstruck, but at this time, those warriors realized that their lives had already been saved by Yi Shiwen and shouted in succession out of happiness. Kill these Chao family bastards, they actually conspired to kill us. Kill them all. I will completely eradicate Chao family. After facing such a life and death situation, now, many warriors had survived because of the unexpected appearance of Yi Shiwen, and this had boosted their morale. They were in high spirits, and without wasting any time, they roared and rushed towards the warriors of the Chao family, who were still mourning the deaths of their strongest experts. Yi Shiwen did not say anything and arrived at the side of Fire Lin beast and lifted his blade in a stance. The Fire Lin beast had been crippled by a punch from Yi Shiwen and couldn't even move. Yi Shiwen finally stabbed his blade into its body and put it out of its miseries. Yi Shiwen received the corpse of Fire Lin beast in his storage ring, as it had the blood of Fire Qilin in its body, and its whole body could be considered as a treasure, even though it had not fully matured before dying. However, if it had completely transformed into a fully grown Fire Lin beast, then Yi Shiwen would have been unable to deal with it. When it had swallowed the blue flaming lotus, it had then entered into the growth period of rapid transformation, and if given enough time, it could have even reached the Xiantian 6th stage in just 1 year. Fire Lin beast had just entered the growth period, and after fully maturing, it would have become an absolutely terrifying demon beast in this locality and would have brought disaster on everyone, but fortunately, before it could fully mature, it had been killed by Yi Shiwen. Brother Yi, I didn't expect you to be all right. Dai Xiaohua came up and said. About those Hotian realm warriors of the Chao family, he simply didn't care because this incident had come to a closure along with deaths of the 3 Xiantian masters of the Chao family and Fire Lin Beast, and killing these warriors of the Hotian realm would only be a waste of time. Although Chao family was on the verge of complete extinction, but those warriors were quite furious for being conspired against by the Chao family because they could have lost their lives pointlessly. Both sides had started to fight, but soon Wu Xiaoyang also joined the battle, and once a Xiantian master like him joined the fray, immediately, this fight had turned into a one-sided massacre, and soon, Chao family warriors had been completely massacred. Brother Yi, thanks for saving our lives today, and if I ever got an opportunity in the future, I would certainly return the favor. Wu Xiaoyang said, I am going back and reveal this news to the public, goodbye. Yi Shiwen nodded. After a while, everyone had left, leaving only Yi Shiwen and Dai Xiaohua behind in the cave, because those warriors had faced such a life-threatening experience in this cave and were reluctant to stay here. Brother Yi, it is needless to say that I will return the favor, and if you ever need help with something, come find me in the Yunqing city. Dai Xiaohua said while laughing. Yi Shiwen nodded, and though Dai Xiaohua had not said something pleasant to hear, but after spending time with him, Yi Shiwen had finally come to understand his character. Yi Shiwen knew that the words he just said seemed fancy, but they still were a lot more meaningful. Dai Xiaohua was still young and was an outstanding genius who had already entered the Xiantian realm, so how could he possibly not enter the city of Yunqing, which was a necessity for all the disciples of Dai family sect? I think we will soon also be able to meet again. Dai Xiaohua laughed. Looking at Brother Yes talent, you would certainly be going to the Yiyuan main sect, and I am sure that very soon, you will become an outstanding disciple of the Yiyuan main sect, and when the time comes, we should be able to meet again in the meeting of the warriors of 4 great sects. Meeting of the warriors of 4 great sects? Yi Shiwen asked. Brother Yi, you don't know that the 4 great sects of our Yu state jointly holds the meeting of outstanding warriors, including some well-known figures coming from all over Great Yu state. Dai Xiaohua said. Sometimes, the masters of the royal family also join in short, the competition is going to be very fierce, but I think the strength of Brother Yi is more than enough and standing out won't be an issue for you. Yi Shiwen did not ask anything more because right now, he had not even entered into the main sect, so there were a lot of things that he still did not know about, but once he entered into the main sect, then these things won't remain hidden from his eyes, and he would eventually come to know about them. Then I'll say goodbye. I must rush toward Yunqing City. This time I secretly ran out on my own and did not go along with my team. Dai Xiaohua said. The 4 big sects of the Great Yu state were located at the 4 corners of the state, each in the east, west, north and south direction, which worked as the 4 gateways and supported the state. Yiyuan main sect was located in the west direction, and Qingfeng Mountain Ziyuan School was located further in the southwest, although separated by a large distance. But one could travel this distance in one day by riding a flight-type demon beast. But Yunqing City was located in the northern part of Great Yu State, and even by riding on a flight-type demon beast, it would take half a month time. Therefore this time, Dai Xiaohua was in a lot of tension compared to Yi Shiwen. And I'm sure we'll meet again someday. Yi Shiwen nodded. After bidding farewell to Dai Xiaohua, Yi Shiwen began to travel alone. 2 months' time passed in a blink of an eye. The large entrance to the Yiyuan main sect was located in the western part of Yu State, and when Yi Shiwen arrived there, he saw that it was completely bustling with people who had arrived from more than 100 subschools. These people were actually the geniuses from all over the Yu State, as well as many visitors who had come along with them. And like Yi Shiwen, they had come to enter into the Yiyuan main sect. So this is the Yiyuan main sect where the genius disciples from various Yiyuan subschools come to study. Yi Shiwen looked from afar and saw dozens of miles away, an endless mountain range of 10 huge mountains that looked like the mountains of immortals, and resembled a sacred mountainous region. Each and every one of those mountain peaks were so high, as if they were piercing the sky itself, covered with clouds and mist curling around the mountains. Countless waterfalls were traversing horizontally down those mountains, and it appeared as if the galaxies were falling from the 7th heaven. Among these endless mountains, a palace could be seen, rising steeply from the level ground, and well blended with the surrounding environment, which seemed to resemble the nature itself. The most spectacular thing was that in the depth of the mountain range, several palaces could be seen in a row, visibly floating above the tall peaks, and the whole scenery looked like a city in the mountains. Yi Shiwen was amazed at the scene which had unfolded in front of him. It clearly resembled a paradise, and compared with the landscape and environment present in the Yiyuan main sect, Qingfeng Mountain's environment was nothing. And that was the reason why many experts would rather come to these great sects. Coming to the main sect was similar to living in a paradise on the earth, which was going to be a unique experience for Yi Shiwen, who had come from a different world. Even from dozens of miles away, Yi Shiwen could clearly feel the intermittent waves of strong and rich lingqi present in the wind, which was very important for cultivating. With each blow of air on his face and with each breath he took, he would feel 100 vessels opening inside his body, giving a comfortable feeling to him. Yi Shiwen didn't know that how many spiritual veins had been buried in these mountains by the main sect to make the air so rich in lingqi. If practiced here, then he would certainly gain twice the result with half the effort. Chapter 76, Senior Disciple Shi. No wonder that main sect had chosen such a place as its base, because even with low qualifications and talent, it was possible to enter into the Xiantian realm with little practice. Moreover, the disciples of Yiyuan subschools, although one could not say that all were peerless geniuses, but their qualifications were still not so bad. And once the disciples of the Hotian 9th stage would enter into the main sect, they would be able to break through to the Xiantian realm within few years. If practiced in the environment of subschools, then they would be able to step into the Xiantian realm by the time they reached the age of 30 years old. Resources and environment of the subschools and main sect varied greatly. Although the difference was only a few years to enter into the Xiantian realm, but practicing for entering into the Xiantian realm inside the main sect and practicing for the same without entering the main sect were not the same things. The difference was only a few years, but the gap between them was already very big, because without competition and proper environment for cultivation, there was a high possibility for this gap to widen. Those who had already entered the Xiantian realm before entering into the main sect were the so-called seed disciples, who would immediately receive various resources from the Yiyuan main sect to ensure that they should be able to have a rapid increase in their cultivation in a short time. This was also the biggest attraction for all of the geniuses, and many schools would send their genius disciples to practice in the main sect. And since these disciples were already considered geniuses from their respective schools, and once they would practice in the favorable environment of the main sect, then they would definitely get stronger. That is why the disciples passing out of the main sect or other 4 big sects of the Great Yu State were never weak. Yi Shiwen had some mixed feelings about this because he had just arrived at the main sect and he didn't know about the strength level of other geniuses who had also come this year, and he also didn't know how much they had already practiced and how much they would progress after practicing in the favorable environment of main sect. He knew that things were going to be tough from this point onwards, and he needed to work hard to surpass others. After thinking about it, Yi Shiwen felt a kind of passionate feeling building inside his heart, because now these formidable opponents would become a driving force for his cultivation. However, right now, the first thing to do was to find the people of the Qingfeng Mountains Yuan School. Suddenly, from the sky, a giant demon bird descended down, and standing on its top was a decent-looking man. He smiled towards Yi Shiwen and said, "Younger brother, you should be this year's new disciple from a subschool, right?" "I am." Yi Shiwen nodded. "Brother is very talented, so young, and you are already a master of the Xiantian realm, and presumably also a seed disciple." The man laughed and said, "My name is Shi, and I am an inner disciple." "Greeting, brother Shi, I am Yi Shiwen." Yi Shiwen said, and he could easily see through the depth of Shi's breath and knew that he was completely harmless, but his cultivation had already reached a very high level because unlike other Xiantian experts, who also contained a part of non-converted Hotian Jinqi in their bodies, his breath was already complete and rich, as if he had already become one with the nature. Yi Shiwen concluded that Shi was definitely a master of Xiantian 5th stage, and he could be among the top inner disciples. Of course, there was no comparison between the strength of core disciples of the main sect and the core disciples of the Qingfeng Mountain, because the core disciples from the main sect could go to the sub-schools and become their head, or sovereign. This was the difference. Brother Yi, do you want to go inside? Sure Yi said, if you want, you may come up and I'll give you a ride. It is greatly appreciated, brother. I am a disciple of the Qingfeng Mountain Ziyuan School and I don't know where they are because I did not come along with them. Yi Shiwen said, I know where people from different sub-schools live. Come on, I'll take you there. Shuri said, thank you. Yi Shiwen jumped upon the back of the demon bird, and although he had not ridden demon birds, but he knew about how to do it. He immediately concentrated an influx of Zhen Qi at the soles of his feet and firmly adsorbed on the demon bird's back. Go! Shur Yi shouted, and the demon bird quickly moved, waving its huge wings, flying into the clouds. Suddenly Yi Shiwen felt like the wind was blowing and stinging on his skin like blades made of air. But fortunately, Yi Shiwen had covered his whole body with Xiantian Zhen Qi, and therefore did not feel anything. This demon bird was so fast that in a moment, they had already reached the inner parts of the Yiyuan main sect, and he could not help but feel amazed at the beauty of this place and sighed with emotion. After careful examination, he saw tens of mountain peaks that were so high that the several palaces, atop these peaks, looked like starry sky from below. After Shur Yi's explanation, Yi Shiwen found out that these 10 enormous peaks represented 10 branch veins of the Yiyuan school, and legend said that in the past, the founder of the Yiyuan school had handed over these 10 branch veins to 10 of his best disciples. The first 10 mountain peaks were now governed by people of the Yiyuan school, holding the reins of the main sect. Meanwhile, their strength was also unpredictable, and all of them were Zhendao experts, possessing strengths even more terrifying than the masters of the Xiantian realm, and to what extent, even Shur Yi didn't know. Yi Shiwen knew that Zhendao masters were considered the authentic disciples of the Yiyuan main sect, and they also possessed terrifying strength, capable enough to kill any experts of the Xiantian realm easily. Even in such a big influential sect like the Yiyuan main sect, there were only around 100 Zhendao experts. Besides first 10 leaders and those other Zhendao disciples, in the Yiyuan school, the disciples were divided into inner sect disciples, core disciples, and outer sect disciples. With the vast resources offered by the Yiyuan main sect to the inner sect disciples, they would be able to break into the Xiantian realm in just few years, so the number of inner sect disciples was always more compared to that of outer sect disciples. In fact, number of inner sect disciples would be the largest of about 50,000, followed by core sect disciples and least number of outer sect disciples. Yi Shiwen had gained a direct insight into the true strength of Yiyuan main sect, because having thousands of Xiantian warriors was really incredible for a sect. Shur Yi told Yi Shiwen that the new disciples from the sub-schools would go through the examination, and there, it will be decided which peak they would go to. And during the examination, if one was to give an outstanding performance, then there was a chance to get selected to study under the elder, which was a great honor for the disciple, and his status would also increase. In a very short span of time, the demon bird flew closer to the settlements of the disciples. Chapter 77, Bullying. This is the courtyard for disciple of Qingfeng Mountain Ziyuan School. I will leave you here. The wings of the demon bird closed down and it descended on a mountain peak. This mountain peak was located in the more remote area, but several buildings were present on it. The disciples of other sub-schools were also concentrated on several other mountain peaks, although somewhat far away in the remote areas because main sect valued strength, and it was obvious that disciples from the sub-school would be weaker compared to disciples of the main sect. Thank you. Yi Shiwen climbed up the stairs and quickly arrived at the hillside where the courtyard for disciples of Qingfeng Mountain's Yiyuan School was located. Yi Shiwen had not reached the top yet when he heard a loud voice. How can you do this? This is our Qingfeng Mountain Yiyuan School's courtyard. You cannot just barge in and occupy our place. Yi Shiwen heard the voice of the only female top core disciple of Qingfeng Mountain's Yiyuan School, Qian Wanru. Hey, why not? We have more people and you have so few, a total of only 20. So what if we want to occupy your courtyard? You have come from the small countryside school and you don't need this much space, but this time, our Shaoyang Yuan school has sent 50 people, so you separate out 2/3 of this courtyard and give it to us. This is not right, because this is the place where all of our forefathers from Qingfeng Mountain Yuan School once lived and practiced. Why must we give this to you? I tell you what, let's decide with our strengths. An arrogant voice resounded in the courtyard. Yi Shiwen rapidly climbed up the steps, and after reaching the top, he soon saw a group of approximately 30 young people surrounding the disciples of the Qingfeng Mountain Yuan School in the courtyard. Shang Yuan School. Yi Shiwen frowned at the name of this school. This name, for Yi Shiwen, was definitely not strange because Shaoyang Yuan School and Qingfeng Mountain Yuan School had been hostile towards each other for God knows how many years. This enmity between these two subschools started in the ancient era and no one knew the reason behind it. However, after so many years of holding grudges and hatred towards each other, there was nothing that could be done to stop this clash between the two subschools. Two groups were confronting each other where one belonged to the Qingfeng Mountain, about 20 in number and all over the middle Hotian 9th stage, and were being led by Zhang Yang, Qian Wanru and Wu Hao. Among them, Zhang Yang had already entered into the Xiantian realm and had transformed 10% of his Zhenqi into Xiantian Zhenqi, while Qian Wanru and Wu Hao had both reached the peak of Hotian 9th stage. The group on the other side belonged to the Shaoyang Yuan School, headed by a young guy who currently had a sneer on his face. He was also a Xiantian first stage master, but with his 20% Zhenqi already transformed into Xiantian Zhenqi, he was a lot stronger than Zhang Yang. Qingfeng Mountain Yuan School this year's core disciples really had relatively mediocre strength. Hu Cheng, do not go too far with the bullying. At this time, Wu Hao spoke. Bullying? You call that bullying, haha. A moment ago, that guy called Yi Feng, who was supposed to be the most powerful disciple from your school, easily collapsed in front of me. He is lucky that I almost stopped myself from wasting his cultivation. Hu Cheng said with a complacent smile on his face. In the back of the crowd, Yi Feng's complexion suddenly changed. So, that was the reason why Yi Shiwen had not seen him in the crowd, because he had already been wounded. Yi Ziwen's complexion suddenly changed. In this entire world, he loved his family the most, and someone had dared to touch a member of his family, and by doing so he had also invited the wrath of the emperor. Fuck off! Yi Shiwen shouted. Yi Ziwen's shout had immediately caused commotion among the disciples of the Shaoyang Yuan School when they saw a 17-year-old boy was ferociously looking at them. Yi Shiwen. When Zhang Yang saw Yi Shiwen, a sudden happiness bloomed on his face. It's Brother Yi. Brother Yi. All of the disciples of the Qingfeng Mountain Yuan School had an expression of surprise on their faces when they suddenly saw Yi Shiwen, and now they felt relaxed because now they knew that they had survived this crisis, because in the present situation, even Zhang Yang and Yi Feng, the two Xiantian masters, had been unable to do anything, but in their hearts, they had already accepted Yi Shiwen as their leader. After all, months ago, Yi Shiwen had easily beheaded a Xiantian master, although at that time, Lu Ji's strength had not been that much, and his transformation of Xiantian Zhenqi was inferior compared to the current Zhenqi transformation of Zhang Yang and Yi Feng. But Yi Shiwen was also only a Hotian realm warrior back then and had still been able to behead a Xiantian master like Lu Ji. Moreover, Yi Shiwen had also received Xiantian Dan and Blood Yuan fruit like Yi Feng and Zhang Yang, so it was easy to guess that he would definitely have entered into the Xiantian realm and his previous tyrannical strength would have become even more tyrannical. Indeed, as they had thought, in the last 2 months, Yi Shiwen's strength had progressed by leaps and bounds and he had become tyrannically power, even though he was still at the Xiantian first stage. He had fully consolidated his inner state within the Xiantian realm at the first stage, and half of his Zhenqi had completely transformed into Xiantian Zhenqi. He had experienced breakthroughs in all of his Xiantian-level martial arts techniques where he had reached the peak of first layer of Tyrant Body Technique, which made his slim body to contain a total strength of 19 dragons. And now that he had reached the peak of transformation of 50% Zhenqi into the Xiantian Zhenqi, he could even contend with the Xiantian third stage experts, and the most important thing was that the now ordinary warriors of the Xiantian third stage wouldn't be able to injure him. He had finally reached the peak of the Xiantian part of Celestial Step, and in just 2 months, his speed had nearly doubled compared to the speed he had while fighting the Fire Lin Beast. Changing muscles, shrinking bones technique had been practiced to the Xiaocheng realm, and even while standing beside a Xiantian master, Yi Shiwen could not be discovered and would even be able to change his appearance. He had achieved the best benefits in the Cold Moon Beheader and had actually practiced the Full Moon Beheader to the Deshang realm. Only the progress was not much for Coiling Dragon Palm, which was such a difficult martial art to practice that Yi Shiwen could only grasp a little more knowledge about its first move, Hidden Dragon Rising from the Abyss. Now only the masters of the Xiantian third stage who had transformed 60% of their Jinqi into Xiantian Jinqi could pose a threat to him. But with such advancements in his strength, the price naturally was very large. After entering into the Xiantian realm, the low-grade spirit stones consumption had increased dramatically, and almost all of the spirit stones he possessed had already been burnt in the last 2 months, and now, low-grade spirit stone were simply not good enough for practicing Xiantian techniques, so he could only use spirit stones which were quite expensive. In other words, Yi Shiwen had once again become poor. Chapter 78. Like a dead dog, however, Yi Shiwen was quite used to his special way of cultivation, and he needed to arrange for surplus spirit stones to continue practicing in the special space. After entering into the Xiantian realm, the crazy consumption rate of spirit stones had led to a rapid increase in his strength and speed to a terrifying extent. People of Shaoyang Yuan School were also giving somewhat strange looks to Yi Shiwen, because they did not know why disciples of Qingfeng Mountain Yuan School looked so overjoyed after the sudden appearance of this young man. "Who are you?" Huiqing asked. "Qingfeng Mountain Yuan School's Yi Shiwen." Yi Shiwen indifferently said, "Who wounded my brother?" "It was him, that Huiqing." "Yes, it was him." Many of the disciples of Qingfeng Mountain Yuan School immediately said while pointing towards Huiqing. "So what if it was me?" Huiqing looked at Yi Shiwen with disdain and said, "Are you that Yi Feng's younger brother?" "That Yi Feng is a guy with an undeserved reputation and mediocre strength, that's all he is." Huiqing said indifferently, "You are just an ignorant dog who has actually dared to venture into our territory." Yi Shiwen looked maliciously at Huiqing and said. At this time, the conflict between the two subschools had also attracted many onlookers, consisting mainly of disciples living on the neighboring mountain peaks. Both Qingfeng Mountain and Shaoyang Yuan schools were one of a dozen or more subschools, and the disciples from these subschools had settled on dozens of mountain peaks. Although more than a dozen mountain peaks were occupied by the disciples of these subschools, but for the entire Yuan school, this was still a small and insignificant area and nothing more. The key figures of Yuan school, the elders, the high-ranked disciples and others, all of them had their own separate mountain peak as personal domain. It was difficult to imagine how big Yuan school actually was. "You actually dared to abuse me," Huiqing shouted with an angry look on his face. "Abused? That was just the beginning, because now I will beat the crap out of you." Yi Shiwen sneered, and in just a step, using Celestial Step, he arrived in front of Huiqing in a flash. "Did you think you can just come here and run wildly and no one will punish you?" Yi Shiwen mercilessly shot his big hand towards the face of Huiqing. Until a moment ago, Huiqing had been feeling triumphed when he suddenly saw Yi Ziwen's hand coming towards him. He wanted to dodge but simply couldn't because Yi Ziwen's speed was incredibly fast, almost like a whirlwind, and in an instant, Yi Ziwen's hand had approached Huiqing's face. Bang! Yi Ziwen's big hand slapped maliciously on the face of Huiqing. He suddenly screamed and spat out a mouthful of blood, and along with that, some of his teeth flew out. All the people present there had their jaws dropped. They knew about Huiqing's strength because being able to convert 20% of Jinqi into Xiantian Jinqi was rare for masters at such a young age. However, this Yi Shiwen was simply too terrifying. His palm was so fast that Huiqing had been unable to dodge it and had suffered a severe slap on the face. Moreover, from the look on Yi Ziwen's face, it seemed as if he hadn't put any effort at all. Shaoyang Yuan School's disciples broke out in cold sweat, and Qingfeng Mountain Yuan School's disciples were cheering for Yi Shiwen because his strength really had become even more unfathomable and tyrannical. "You?" Huiqing looked at Yi Shiwen with a look of disbelief. "What you?" Yi Shiwen again slapped him on the other side of his face, and suddenly, a few more teeth went flying out. There was a huge difference between their strengths. Although Huacheng could be considered as an outstanding genius in the crowd of this year's disciples, who had already transformed 20% of his Zhenqi into Xiantian Zhenqi. If he had faced someone else, then he would not be so miserable, but to his bad luck, he had dared to provoke Yi Shiwen. "I'll kill you." Huacheng was extremely furious in his heart and mind, because from infancy to adulthood he had always been called a cultivation genius and had already gained fame at a young age by getting attention from everyone, but just now he had received such humiliation. Both of his eyes had reddened and one could see hatred for Yi Shiwen in his eyes, who had humiliated him in front of such a large crowd, consisting of disciples from many subschools. When he had come to bully the disciples of Qingfeng Mountain Yuan School, Huacheng never thought that he himself would be bullied instead. Huacheng drew out his sword blade and it brandished a dazzling sword light that instantly rushed towards Yi Shiwen with lightning speed. Although Huacheng did not have the strength to hit back in front of tyrannical Yi Shiwen and had been slapped twice, that had made him face such a disgrace in front of everyone. But he was strong and was indeed a genius of Shaoyang Yuan School, and at this time, the strength of a master of peak Xiantian first stage completely unleashed in this sword attack. Yi Shiwen sneered and used Rushing Thunder Hand to instantly grasp Huacheng's sword blade. Dang! A loud metal clashing sound resounded everywhere, and Yi Shiwen actually firmly grabbed Huacheng's sword blade in his hand. Bang dang! Bang dang! Bang dang! Yi Shiwen kneaded that sword blade as if it was made up of clay, and its size decreased section by section. After entering into the Xiantian realm and practicing tyrant body technique to such a profound level, not only his strength had increased dramatically, but the toughness of his body had also increased to such an extent that now, it had become difficult for weapons like spears and swords to hurt him. Yi Shiwen kneaded the sword blade along with the sword key and directly snapped it. How is this possible? Huacheng simply couldn't believe his eyes when his sword blade snapped in the grip of Yi Ziwen's hand. Yi Shiwen sneered, and without giving any chance to Huacheng, he rushed like an azure dragon rising out of the abyss and instantly trod on his chest. Bang! Huacheng couldn't respond, and his body was sent flying like a broken kite, upside down, directly towards the several disciples of Shaoyang Yuan School with such a forceful impact that made them to fly out, and most of them fainted immediately. Get the hell out of here! With a cold look in his eyes, Yi Shiwen said, "You absolutely cannot barge into this place because it belongs to our Qingfeng Mountain Yuan School. Keep that in mind." All of the disciples of Shaoyang Yuan School were giving angry looks to Yi Shiwen, but did not dare to say anything. After all, a powerful Xiantian master like Huacheng had been beaten so easily, and they were not even in the Xiantian realm. So, how could they dare to say anything to a tyrannical Xiantian master like Yi Shiwen? Although they were at the peak of Hotian 9th stage and Xiantian realm was only one step across, but the difference was like heaven and earth between the Hotian realm and Xiantian realm. At this time, the disciples of other Yuan schools started talking about Yi Shiwen among themselves. Who is he? Why haven't I seen him before? Quite fierce, that Huacheng was definitely not weak, but he still couldn't hit back like a dead dog. Chapter 79. Father becomes the ancestor. I never thought that there was actually such a fierce man in Qingfeng Mountain Subschool. Right? Qingfeng Mountain Subschool is located in the remote areas of Great Yu State and rarely produces any powerful masters, but I never expected to see such an incredible master originating from there. Gee, it seems like things are going to be interesting because their genius has been defeated so easily, and Shaoyang Subschool won't easily forget about this. Yes, I heard that the Shaoyang Subschool also has a very strong genius and his strength is close to the strengths of several seed disciples. What is that guy called again? He is called Wen Shiyang. Yes, that's it, Wen Shiyang. Except those few seeds disciples, he can be considered a very powerful master. Gee, I did not expect Qingfeng Mountain Subschool to have such a fierce character like him. He definitely didn't use his full strength against Huacheng, and I am sure that when the time comes, we will get to see his true strength. Seeing that people of Shaoyang Subschool had started to leave, Yi Shiwen did not stay there for too long and ran towards the inner courtyard. After entering the inner courtyard, he asked, "What the hell is going on? How did these bastards dare to bully our people?" Zhang Yang looked at Yi Shiwen with a baffled look in his eyes. Yi Shiwen had become even more powerful than the last time, and earlier, Zhang Yang had been able to see through his cultivation level, but now he absolutely couldn't see it at all. Although originally, Yi Shiwen always had a superior fighting strength and had also beheaded a Xiantian master, but at that time, he was still in the Hotian realm and his cultivation was visible to others. But now that he had transformed half of his Zhenqi into the Xiantian Zhenqi, his inner state had easily surpassed Zhang Yang, who had only transformed 10% of his Zhenqi into Xiantian Zhenqi. Although Yi Shiwen was still in the Xiantian first stage, but his fighting strength was comparable to a master of Xiantian third stage. All of this had occurred in a few months' time, and if he had not personally seen it, he probably would not have believed it. Few months ago, he had heard from Yi Feng about his young brother that he was just a master of Hotian third stage and was not even qualified to become a core disciple, but in these few months, he completely changed. But anyway, Yi Shiwen was also a disciple of Qingfeng Mountain Subschool, and the stronger he would be, the better for the reputation of their school. This is not the first time. We have been dealing with those guys from Shaoyang Subschool for days, and each time, they come looking for a fight with new and ridiculous excuses. This time, they wanted to occupy our place. That's really outrageous. Zhang Yang said in an angry tone. This was obviously a case of Shaoyang Subschool's subterfuge because this mountain peak was so big that it could accommodate even 500 disciples at once. So all they were trying to do was nothing more than finding a pretext to come and bully us. Before, I was not present here and your elder brother had an argument with them and they injured him. Zhang Yang explained. Them? There was someone else? Yi Shiwen asked. Yes, if it was only that Huocheng, then your brother with 20% transformed Xiantian Zhenqi was enough to handle him. Although Huocheng's 20% Xiantian Zhenqi transformation was superior to your brother, but he would still have been able to protect himself. The main reason behind his injuries was the strongest disciple of Shaoyang Subschool, called Wen Shiyang, who is already a master of Xiantian second stage. He was the one who seriously wounded your brother. I came back and saw that Huocheng was about to destroy your brother's cultivation and rescued your brother. By that time, Wen Shiyang had already left. Zhang Yang explained the matter to Yi Shiwen. What? Yi Shiwen did not know that they were going to destroy Yi Feng's cultivation, otherwise he would not have showed mercy to Huocheng by only injuring him with a kick. He would never have allowed him to get away so easily. However, it was really amazing that Yi Feng had not only entered into Xiantian realm, but he could transform 20% of his Zhenqi into the Xiantian Zhenqi in such a short time of 3 months. Excellent natural talent, but their school had issued a Xiantian pellet to them very late, unlike other subschools where they gave Xiantian pellets to train some geniuses years before sending them to the main sect. When Qingfeng Mountain Subschool had inquired, they found out that many disciples had already entered into the Xiantian realm in other subschools, and even without the resources, Yi Feng had achieved the same feat by taking the same time for breaking through to the Xiantian realm. So, considering the natural talent of Yi Feng, his breaking through to the Xiantian second stage was not surprising for Yi Shiwen. But anyway, under the tilt of the main sect and its abundant resources, the advantages of the using resources for cultivation in the last few years could be regarded as nothing. When Yi Shiwen heard that Yi Feng had been wounded and had almost lost his cultivation, he suddenly became furious. In order to bully the disciples of Qingfeng Mountain Subschool, they were willing to go as far as destroying someone's cultivation? This time, Shaoyang Subschool had really crossed the line. Who is the elder sent for escorting our school's group to main sect? Where is he right now? Yi Shiwen asked, because in general, these subschool disciples would not go alone to the main sect and the elders would accompany them inside the school. One reason was to protect them from any accident the way to main sect, and secondly, also to protect them from getting bullied in the main sect. This was the world which followed the rule of might is right and strength was the only parameter that measured everything. And the other reason was that these subschools would exploit their connections with their disciples in the future. Although now, they studied in the main sect, but human relations could be useful to a great extent, and when these disciples would become high-level experts or key figures in the main sect, they would then become the biggest backers for these subschools. This time, Ancestor Lin has come with us. Zhang Yang said. Ancestor Lin? Yi Shiwen asked in surprise. How could the ancestor personally escort them, because it was never expected of an ancestor to personally escort the disciples to the main sect, as it was the job of an elder. I see you left early, so you do not know. Ancestor Lin Zhantian has already retired, and the new ancestor of Qingfeng Mountain Yuan School is your father. Zhang Yang said. What? Yi Shiwen was startled. So, he only left for few months, and such a big change took place in the school where his father actually became the ancestor of Qingfeng Mountain Yuan School. Although Yi Kongming was originally an elder, but the status of an elder or an ancestor could never be same. The status of the ancestors of subschools was comparable to that of the true disciples of the main sect, and his father had directly been promoted from the position of an elder to that of an ancestor. 1 month ago, Ancestor Lin resigned and has come to the main sect for debriefing. Zhang Yang explained. Where is the Ancestor Lin right now? Yi Shiwen asked. Chapter 80. Dropping in, to fight in the normal course of events, he ought to be here to protect them. But now at such a critical time, they actually could not find him. If Lin Zhantian was here at that time, then all of this would never have happened and Yi Feng would not have been seriously injured by them. About this, we do not know where the Ancestor Lin is right now. When Ancestor had just arrived, he was summoned, and not just him, elders of other subschools were summoned as well. Zhang Yang said, although at this time, the position of their subschool's ancestor had been taken over by Yi Kongming, but since his childhood, Zhang Yang had been using the term ancestor to refer Lin Zhantian, and therefore, suddenly changing his habit of calling him ancestor was somewhat difficult for him. Also, no one would go to tangle over such a trivial matter. It seems like something happened, and that's why they were called on a short notice. While talking to Zhang Yang, Yi Shiwen entered the room and glimpsed at Yi Feng, who was lying on the bed. His complexion looked pale and his breath was also intermittent, and Yi Ruxue was on his side, taking care of him at the moment. Yi Shiwen had not seen Yi Ruxue for last 3 months, and right now, he noticed that her breath was still firmly fixed on the peak Hotian 9th stage, and there seemed to be a thin line, and once she broke through this line, then she would be able to break through to the Xiantian realm, and with the help of Yi Zaiwen's Xiantian pellet that he had left for her, this was only a matter of time. According to Yi Zaiwen's judgment, Yi Ruxue's strength had already stayed at the peak of Hotian 9th stage for some time and had fully consolidated, and there was a high possibility that she might experience a breakthrough this month and enter into the Xiantian realm. Brother, sister. Yi Shiwen strode inside. Little brother, you are back. Yi Feng noticed Yi Shiwen coming inside and smiled, but he had suffered serious injuries and suddenly his face twitched. Brother, you must avenge our elder brother that when Shiyang and Hu Qing went simply too far. Yi Ruxue indignantly said. Yi Shiwen also remembered that in his memories, when he was small and would often get bullied for being weak, both Yi Feng and Yi Ruxue would always come to his rescue, and therefore, the bond among 3 siblings had always been extremely strong. Although there was no blood relation between Yi Shiwen and the other 2, but the 3 of them were more intimate than blood-related brothers and sisters. Junior sister Yi, since you were inside the room, you missed the fight where brother Yi directly humiliated Hu Qing in front of everyone and tidied him up like a dead dog. At this time, Wu Hao answered for Yi Shiwen. Really? Yi Ruxue said with a surprised look on her face, but she was also worried for her younger brother. Now, Yi Shiwen had been recognized by everyone as Qingfeng Mountain Subschool's strongest disciple, and Yi Feng was the second. If they could come to beat Yi Feng, then Yi Shiwen would naturally be their next target. But according to Wu Hao's statement, Hu Qing had been defeated effortlessly by Yi Shiwen, and while Wu Hao was explaining things in detail, Yi Feng saw an indifferent look on Yi Zaiwen's face that made him resemble a person tired of war. It was not that he doubted Yi Zaiwen's strength, but thought that it was too inconceivable that Yi Shiwen had so easily tidied up that Hu Qing. If what Brother Wu said is right, then little brother, you have already vented my anger. Yi Feng grinned and said, Vent, it's still too early. Yi Shiwen coldly said, how can you possibly consider this matter as finished? Yi Shiwen's words were filled with killing intent. Originally, Yi Shiwen had counted on the elder who had come with the group to the main sect, but it seemed that he couldn't count on that at the moment. But when he heard that the elder of the Shaoyang subschools had also gone for the summons, he immediately had an idea that rather than asking someone else for help, he might as well just ask himself. Today, things might have gone worse if he had not arrived at a critical moment, and when Yi Shiwen watched Yi Feng lying on the bed, finding it difficult to move, he was even more infuriated. How could he possibly let them off? People of Shaoyang subschool were waiting for a chance when their elder was not present. Otherwise, if he was present, then their plan to bully Qingfeng Mountain subschool would most likely have failed. Because their elder, sent to the main sect along with these elite disciples, was also an incredible master and could easily deal with the Xiantian level disciples as well. And today, when all of the elders had been summoned, the people of Shaoyang subschool immediately came to bully the people of Qingfeng Mountain. They had obviously not come for taking over the courtyard, and it was purely an excuse to provoke the disciples of Qingfeng Mountain subschool and nothing more. Yi Shiwen pulled out a bottle of medicinal pellets from a storage ring. There were many bottles of medicinal pills inside the storage ring that he had got from the Xiantian master, Luo Tian, and these medicinal pills were good for injuries. Although Yi Shiwen had consumed most of the medicinal pills, but there were still some that he had saved for emergencies. After a dose of medicinal pills, Yi Feng's face immediately changed for better and he seemed to get better. A warrior's body itself was very strong, not to mention, these medicinal pills belonged to a Xiantian master, Luo Tian. Yi Shiwen estimated that Yi Feng would be able to recover in 2 or 3 days and should be able to perform at full strength in the entrance examination. When Yi Shiwen saw that the condition of Yi Feng had considerably improved after consuming the pills, he gave out a sigh of relief and said, "Brother, you just wait and see how I take revenge for you and vent your anger. Today, these Shaoyang bastards dared to come and bully us, and if I do not teach them a lesson, then won't that ruin our Qingfeng Mountain subschool's reputation? And everyone would think of us as people from a weak subschool." Yi Shiwen's words were deep and meant that only strong people commanded respect in this world and weak were regarded as fools. Competition was present everywhere and it was especially very fierce among the subschools. Only a powerful person could command respect, and if Qingfeng Mountain subschool didn't respond to the provocation of Shaoyang subschool, then it would definitely be regarded as a weak subschool. So, if someone tried to punch, it was necessary to punch back even harder to prove one's strength in this world. Teaching Shaoyang subschool a lesson now was in the best interests of Qingfeng Mountain subschool. But this was just a secondary reason, and injuries of Yi Feng were the main reason why Yi Shiwen was so fixated on punishing those bullies of Shaoyang subschool. Yi Shiwen ascertained the location of Shaoyang subschool's courtyard and immediately went out, followed by many disciples of Qingfeng Mountain subschool. Shaoyang subschool's courtyard was located not far from the Qingfeng Mountain subschool's courtyard, and only after a while, Yi Shiwen was standing in front of Shaoyang subschool. Yi Shiwen stepped forward and shouted, "Wen Shiyang, get your ass over here." Yi Ziwen's voice spread out along with a terrifying zhen qi throughout the courtyard, causing many nearby Shaoyang disciples to rush over to take a look at what was happening. "Who are you? How dare you to be so provocative and unruly in front of our Shaoyang subschool residents?" A young disciple came out and said, "Get lost." Yi Shiwen indifferently said, "You bastard, I will kill you." The young disciple suddenly rushed furiously towards Yi Shiwen and his Quanjin twisted and blasted out of his fists and went towards Yi Shiwen. Yi Ziwen's big hand stretched out, and it seemed as if the lingqi had condensed around his hand to form an iron wall. Yi Shiwen fiercely struck his hand into that disciple's body. Bang! The disciple directly flew out while spouting blood from his mouth and fainted instantly. This loud sound immediately attracted the attention of many disciples in the courtyard of Shaoyang subschool, and only after a moment, dozens of disciples had arrived and completely surrounded Yi Shiwen. Chapter 81. When Shiyang comes out. Only after a moment, dozens of disciples from Shaoyang subschool had arrived and completely surrounded Yi Shiwen. "Who are you? How dare you come to our Shaoyang subschool and act so unruly?" Many of the disciples from Shaoyang subschool were angry, but among them were present some of those disciples who were part of Hu Cheng's group and had gone to bully the disciples of the Qingfeng Mountain. They immediately recognized Yi Shiwen and were suddenly frightened because they could vividly remember that scene where Yi Shiwen had bedeviled a Xiantian master like Huacheng, who was also one of the top genius disciples from their subschool. "Go tell Wen Shiyang to come out right now," Yi Shiwen shouted. These disciples from Shaoyang Subschool had tried to take advantage of absence of the elders to thoroughly discredit Qingfeng Mountain Subschool and destroy its reputation, so all Yi Shiwen was trying to do was return the favor by doing the exact same thing, in the exact same pattern, to Shaoyang Subschool, and intended to thoroughly defeat and crush their strongest disciple in front of everyone. Huacheng's reputation was not big enough, so defeating him didn't solve the purpose of tit for tat. So Yi Shiwen had personally come to play with Shaoyang Subschool's strongest disciple. "Who are you? How dare you call Brother Wen's name in such a disrespectful manner?" At this time, a young disciple, who appeared to be in his 20s, came out of the courtyard and looked firmly at Yi Shiwen. "A mere man from Qingfeng Mountain Subschool, daring to act wildly in front of our Shaoyang Subschool, you are really courting death." The young man sneered, and within few steps, he had already arrived in front of Yi Shiwen with an extremely fast speed, and at this moment, the imposing aura of a Xiantian master instantly released from his body and spread out. Yi Shiwen immediately knew who this man actually was. He was named Su Liang and was one of the top 3 Xiantian disciples of the Shaoyang Subschool. Since Yi Shiwen had already met Huacheng and defeated him, and when this man came out, he referred Wen Shiyang as Brother Wen, so he was not Wen Shiyang as well and could only be the 3rd Xiantian master of the Shaoyang Subschool, Su Liang. Su Liang's strength was very high, almost not under Huacheng's strength, which proved the fact that this year's batch of top disciples from Shaoyang Subschool was indeed very powerful, and no wonder they had dared to bully a rival subschool. However, after transforming 50% of his Zhen Qi into Xiantian Zhen Qi, the strength of Yi Shiwen was now comparable to that of ordinary Xiantian 3rd stage masters. Also, his own cultivation was at the peak of Xiantian 1st stage, so how could Su Liang be his match? Yi Shiwen raised his hand to block the incoming attack, and with a bang, a loud sound of air explosion resounded everywhere. Su Liang's offensive attack had been staggered right in front of Yi Shiwen, as if Su Liang had collided into a huge iron wall, setting off a terrifying blast that swept across. During the fight between Xiantian masters, almost each of their punches could easily burst into air explosions, causing the air to vibrate and shake violently, just like how the ripples dance violently on the surface of a lake, fluctuating and distorting its original calmness. Su Liang's eyes widened with a flash of surprise clearly visible in his eyes. He obviously did not expect Yi Shiwen to able to easily block his blow, though his attack just now seemed hasty, but he knew in his heart that before coming out of the courtyard gate, he had already started to prepare a sudden surprise attack on Yi Shiwen, but he never thought that his planned-out offensive attack would be useless against Yi Shiwen, who was just standing there with his one hand on his front side, like an impenetrable iron wall. "My turn." Yi Shiwen sneered and threw out a lightning-fast kick towards Su Liang, accompanied by a burst of crackling air explosions. Yi Ziwen's kick was so fast that it was blowing the sound of a whistle in the air, as it was going straight for Su Liang. Su Liang was well prepared and immediately leaped up to avoid Yi Ziwen's kick, but without any stagnation, Yi Shiwen did not even give him any time to gasp for a breath, and immediately slapped out his palm. Rushing thunder hand, pass like thunder and move like the wind. For a time, Yi Ziwen's attack looked similar to the 9th Heaven's thunder. Bang! Su Liang lifted his hand to block, but immediately, a sudden burst of cracking sound resounded in the surrounding. The bones inside Su Liang's arms had been broken under the direct impact of Yi Ziwen's palm attack, which possessed the strength of 19 dragons, which was quite terrifying because Su Liang had only reached the strength of 2 dragons and could never rival Yi Ziwen's tyrannical strength. Yi Shiwen had not even put any effort and had just shot his palm, but even this was more than enough to instantly crush both arms of Su Liang. The sound of breaking bones had suddenly scared the crowd of Shaoyang disciples. "Ah!" Su Liang screamed again and again. Although a few of them had already seen the one-sided beating of Huacheng at the hands of Yi Shiwen, and knew that he was very powerful, but they did not expect that Su Liang would be so drastically injured by a single attack from Yi Shiwen. Su Liang could not even stop a single move from Yi Shiwen. It was too fast to notice, but Yi Zaiwen's palm attack also had an essence of Missing Moon Beheader present in it. He had already practiced Missing Moon Beheader to the Deshang realm and it had come in handy. Instead of using his long blade, he had used his fingertips to perform the skill of Missing Moon Beheader. He had also integrated the essence of this skill inside his body, which had now become almost incomparably tough like the reinforced iron itself. Even without using his blade, though losing a bit of its true power and range of attack, this attack was still tyrannically powerful and effective. Having the skill of Missing Moon Beheader and along with the essence of his rushing thunder hand, his palm attack had become faster, stronger and terrifyingly heavy. Bang! Yi Zaiwen's palm rumbled and shot into the chest of Su Liang, breaking his breastbone immediately. Yi Shiwen had tried his best to control the power in this palm attack, otherwise, if left unconstrained, this attack would have instantly killed Su Liang. But even after restraining his strength, Yi Zaiwen's attack contained such a terrifying force that it had directly sent Su Liang flying into the crowd of Shaoyang disciples, and the impact made him unconscious immediately. Silence. There was a pin-drop silence on the scene. When the spectating disciples of many sub-schools saw the instant defeat of Su Liang at the hands of Yi Shiwen, all of them immediately gasped. Immediately afterwards, a buzzing sound of discussions instantly filled the surrounding area. How is this possible? Su Liang was so easily defeated at the hands of this man? That palm attack was definitely an astonishing ability. This man is so powerful, I'm afraid he can easily compete with Wen Shiyang. And like always, these Xiantian masters will become stepping stones for someone else like that Hu Cheng and Su Liang, although both of them are quite famous and would have become even more famous in the future, but now, they have become a stepping stone for this man. It has always been this way. These geniuses contend with each other and only the invincible ones walk the bloody path to success. I'll wait to become powerful enough to be able to walk on the same path. After this battle, regardless of the outcome, the name of this person will spread throughout the main sect, and I'm afraid that before long, a lot of people will come to challenge him. After defeating Su Liang, Yi Shiwen stepped forward and shouted, "Wen Shiyang, come out, if you're truly a man. Who are you? State your name." This time, a purple-robed young man, with a dignified look on his face, came out of the courtyard. "You're Wen Shiyang?" Yi Shiwen glanced at him and said, "Who are you?" Wen Shiyang looked at Yi Shiwen and said, "Qingfeng Mountain Subschool's Yi Shiwen." Yi Shiwen indifferently said, "Are you the one who wounded my brother? So you are Yi Feng's little brother. You dared to come here and actually caused ruckus and trouble for everyone. You are quite courageous, aren't you? But you should have thought before offending the school regulations," Wen Shiyang said. Chapter 82 Creative Concept. So you are Yi Feng's little brother. You dared to come here and actually caused ruckus and trouble for everyone. You are quite courageous, aren't you? But you should have thought before offending the school regulations, Wen Shiyang said. School regulations? Yi Shiwen laughed loudly. If people really cared about school regulations, then Yi Feng would not have been injured and all of this would not have happened as well. And those so-called school regulations were just an excuse to protect the weak. Strong never cared about these old regulations. Earlier when Wen Shiyang had bullied Yi Zaiwen's fellow disciples, then he did not think of school regulations, but now that the same thing had been done to his people, he suddenly remembered about it. It was quite hilarious. Cut the crap, today I have come for just one thing, to return the favor by doing the same thing you did to my brother. Yi Shiwen sneered. You are courting death, Wen Shiyang said and glared at Yi Shiwen. He was the unrivaled genius of Shaoyang Subschool and no one dared to talk to him like this. So, the words of Yi Shiwen had made him extremely furious. Wen Shiyang rushed forward, almost like a blurred figure, while breaking through the sound barrier, causing a terrifying piercing sound which spread throughout the sky. Immediately after that, many spectating disciples directly fell on the ground with their eardrums bleeding from this terrifying sound. Clang! A long blade appeared in the hands of Wen Shiyang that he'd taken out from the storage ring, and in a flash, his blade instantly chopped out towards Yi Shiwen. Wen Shiyang was very powerful compared to Huacheng or Su Liang and was already at the Xiantian second stage with 30% transformed Xiantian Jinqi. Although his transformed Xiantian Jinqi was only 10% more than the other two, but his strength was already twice their strength. Yi Shiwen didn't demur and immediately unsheathed the long blade from his back with a clang sound, and shot a terrifying bladiki towards the sky, and it seemed as if the moon was slowly rising. Instantly, the pressure dropped down in the surrounding area, clearly displaying that Yi Shiwen had already obtained a thorough understanding of his blade technique, and everyone was shocked when the true meaning of Yi Ziwen's blade skill suddenly evolved in front of them. Although Wen Shiyang had also practiced a high-grade blade technique, but it was obvious that currently his blade skill was nowhere near the profound blade skill of Yi Shiwen. In a short time, Wen Shiyang would be able to reach the Deshang realm of his blade skill, and only then he might evolve out the creative concept of his blade skill. The difference between their mastery of blade skills alone was too big. What is this creative concept? I actually saw a moon pressed down by the blade attack. One of the disciples was stunned and said, Yi Ziwen's blade technique could already bring forth the creative concept after it had been practiced to the Xiantian realm, and although the power of the move Full Moon Beheader was comparable to that of an advanced power technique, but Cold Moon Beheader was actually a Xiantian level blade technique, and even if the power contained in each of its moves were different, but all of them contained an inherent creative concept. Only those power techniques which contained a creative concept could be called Xiantian power techniques, and if one could not bring forth the creative concept of a technique, then the Xiantian level techniques were no different from the advanced techniques. But if one could successfully understand and evolve out the creative concept of a technique, then the power of his technique would increase by leaps and bounds, and the technique would be able to display its ideal form. All of those outstanding disciples from different subschools, who were watching from the crowd, knew very well about the importance of the creative concept of a technique. They knew that even if someone was to practice a Xiantian level technique to the Deshang realm, they still might not be able to comprehend the creative concept hidden inside it and would only be able to harness its strength up to the advanced stage. Being able to realize the creative concept at such a young age was extremely rare. This is really a creative concept. I have only seen elders displaying the creative concept their techniques. My God, how can it appear in the body of an ordinary person? Creative concept, it actually is a creative concept. Just by virtue of this creative concept, I'm sure that Yi Shiwen will easily enter into the current top 10 great disciples. Countless people were shocked, including Wen Shiyang, who was the closest witness of Yi Ziwen's terrifying display of the creative concept of his blade skill. When this creative concept was brandished, a terrifying pressure had appeared in the surrounding area, as if the sky had fallen down on the ground, and it seemed like the bright moon had appeared, but it actually didn't exist. But Wen Shiyang could vividly feel as if he was taking a walk on a moonlit road, and the bright moonlight was coming down from the heaven and had spilled on the ground, revealing even the slightest detail present in the scenery, leaving nowhere for the secrets to hide under this pure white moonlight, which also contained a penetrating feeling. This kind of oppressive feeling had already made Wen Shiyang anxious about this fight, and his mind was also in a confused state. How is this possible? How is this possible? Wen Shiyang could not believe his eyes, because even practicing one move to the Deshang realm was very tough, and one could say that they had grasped the essence of the technique, but to be able to comprehend and display a creative concept was equivalent to completely commanding the power of that move to its utmost extent. Because all of these Xiantian level techniques or above were once realized and created by the experts, and these techniques were the so-called imitations of nature itself, hence, there would definitely be a creative concept hidden inside them. In fact, these creative concepts had initially urged those experts to comprehend the moves based on these creative concepts and append them to form the power techniques. And only after truly comprehending the move to its acme, Yi Ziwen's blade skill had evolved to such a terrifying extent and had displayed this clear and beautiful, but overwhelming, scenery to the spectators. And Yi Ziwen's display of the creative concept was extremely clear, indicating that he had thoroughly mastered the move. It was simply unbelievable. There was a look of disbelief in the eyes of Wen Shiyang. To think that Yi Shiwen had not just reached the Deshang realm of his blade skill, But he had also comprehended its creative concept? But he didn't have time to be shocked, because if Yi Shiwen had actually evolved this level of creative concept, then he was definitely in a dangerous situation. He would never know that Yi Shiwen had the special space. For others, to be able to comprehend the creative concepts, they had to be very talented, but in Yi Ziwen's case, so long as there were enough spirit stones in his possession, he would be able to completely understand and practice any technique. Yi Shiwen perhaps was not the most talented, nor the strongest, but he was hardworking, and so long as he had enough spirit stones, his practice speed would reach a terrifying level. Because for others, to practice and comprehend was like going into a huge tract of a library and read a variety of books to have an understanding and gain insights. For that, they needed to have high talent, in order to find out the exact direction they needed to search in to find the answers, and they were lucky, they might just find the right book. But this was not the case with Yi Shiwen, because he seemed to have an intelligent book's resolution system that could select the correct book for him, and so long as he swiped the card to pay the money, he could obtain just the book he needed, which would automatically be delivered to him, and he wouldn't have to go into the vast sea of books to search. Even for those geniuses, the chances of comprehending the creative concept were not high, let alone those ordinary disciples. Yi Shiwen chopped down his long blade, and the live picture drawn by the creative concept directly descended over Wen Xiang's bladiki and instantly crushed it down under its terrifying pressure, which seemed as if the whole world was collapsing inch by inch. Their bladiki collided in the midair, and the friction caused a loud and sharp whistling sound which then set off a wave of sound waves. Boom! Finally, Yi Ziwen's bladiki instantly crushed the bladiki of Wen Shiyang and fiercely blasted into his body. Bang! Wen Xiang's blade couldn't block this incredible attack from Yi Shiwen, and his body was sent flying horizontally, while he spat out a mouthful of blood. Chapter 83. Fame spreads. Everyone was silent. One move, just a single move. In a flash, the spectating disciples had witnessed how the reputation of Wen Shiyang was zapped and completely overwhelmed by a single flash of Yi Ziwen's Xiantian bladiki. There was a huge difference between Xiantian and Hotian Jinqi, and 30% transformed Xiantian Jinqi, in fact, had incredible density and toughness, but he was still nowhere near to be Yi Ziwen's match. Yi Shiwen had used his creative concept combined with his bladiki to display such an incredible prowess, and everyone was aware of the fact that, at that time, if Yi Shiwen had not restrained his true strength, then Wen Shiyang would definitely have been split in half. Although school regulations were relatively wide, but were not wide enough to allow killing someone in front of a large crowd, at least, Yi Shiwen was not powerful enough to override school regulations. But, today, if even he had died at the hands of Yi Shiwen, although it would have caused trouble, but Shaoyang Subschool's people could only swallow the bitter pill. All of their Xiantian masters had been defeated, and their own strengths were not good enough. Also, nobody would come to show their sympathy to them, because everyone knew that people of the Shaoyang Subschool were the real perpetrators this time, and this result was inevitable for them. Finished, really finished. All of the outstanding disciples of Shaoyang Subschool had been defeated, and if they didn't recover in time before the beginning of school assessment, then Shaoyang Subschool wouldn't be able to participate in the assessment, because without its top 3 Xiantian masters, it would have no chance to win. This entry assessment of the main sect was not just an ordinary assessment, because it was directly related to the future developments of the various subschools. In the main sect, the resources and facilities were allocated to these subschools based on the performance of their outstanding disciples respectively. In the eyes of the main sect, although it allowed entry to weak disciples as well, but it only was a place for elite disciples from various subschools, so of course, it would provide more rewards and resources to more powerful disciples, and these elite disciples would also get more resources in the coming year. This was the reason why the various subschools would not hesitate to spend their resources on these geniuses before sending them to the main sect. But now, all 3 Xiantian masters of Shaoyang Subschool had been devastated effortlessly, and that, too, in front of everyone. It was totally inconceivable that this year's Shaoyang Subschool was definitely the worst of the crowd, and this would directly affect the allocation of resources in the coming year for it. Earlier, when Shaoyang Subschool disciples had gone to bully the disciples of Qingfeng Mountain Subschool, They would never have expected that things would come to this, and that too by the interference of just one man. The fight between these two men had directly determined the status of the two subschools, and the results of this fight was that the reputation of Qingfeng Mountain Subschool had skyrocketed and become like a tough iron sheet after completely destroying the reputation of Shaoyang Subschool. After this, he would thoroughly become famous. A disciple standing in the crowd murmured. As if a big rock had been dropped in a calm lake, in a flash, Yi Ziwen's fame had spread off like the intermittent waves. The news that Yi Shiwen had effortlessly defeated Shaoyang Subschool's strongest disciple, Wen Shiyang, had spread among more than 100 subschools. Originally among thousands of disciples, Wen Shiyang was not one of the strongest and was only a minor celebrity. Even if Yi Shiwen had defeated Wen Shiyang, this was not that big of a deal for other elite disciples, but everyone present during the fight had seen how Yi Shiwen had used the creative concept of his blade technique to a profound level. This had made him to suddenly become a target and focus of attention of many people. In the Qingfeng Mountain Subschool's courtyard, Yi Feng was standing. He was a Xiantian master, so his resilience was very tough, plus he had consumed a lot of high-grade medicinal pills provided by Yi Shiwen, so his condition had become a lot better and he could walk around easily. At this rate, he would be completely healed before the beginning of assessment. Nearby, Yi Shiwen and Yi Ruxue, his two siblings, stood quietly, and Zhang Yang, Wu Hao and Qian Wanru were also present, making this a gathering of Qingfeng Mountain younger generation's top disciples. The news about Brother Ye's fight with Wen Shiyang has spread everywhere. After knowing that Brother Yi has used creative concept of his blade technique, I'm afraid a lot of people won't be able to sleep now. Now they won't dare to underestimate Qingfeng Mountain Subschool. Qian Wanru said in a very excited tone. Qingfeng Mountain was located in the remote areas of Great Yu State, and Qingfeng Mountain Subschool was always discriminated against by the schools from bigger districts. Yes, I'm afraid there are people who cannot sleep, and it seems that some are deliberately adding fuel to the fire. Yi Feng said with a sigh. This news had spread so fast, so wide, that it was clearly not the result of self-propagation and natural dissemination, and it was certain that people were adding fuel to the flames. I think people just want to stir the muddy water. Zhang Yang frowned and said, someone wants us to become the target of public criticism and they may join hands to destroy us. There's a possibility that you may be right. It is true that in the past, our subschool had become friends with many subschools, but had also made a lot of enemies, and in a short time, we will come to know the inside and outside of this matter. Yi Feng said. It doesn't matter if they are deliberately spreading the news or adding fuel to the flames. If we want to stand out during the coming assessment, we must be prepared to face all of this. Yi Shiwen said, it's quite simple, we will knock down anyone who tries to come in our way. Yi Ziwen's discourse revealed self-confidence. He knew that any plots or conspiracies were nothing in face of a formidable strength and could only accomplish elimination and nothing else. Ha ha. Right, what little brother said is absolutely right. We will overthrow any plots thrown at us, no matter which method they resort to. Yi Feng laughed and said, if someone wants to see what we are made up of, we will let them see enough. Our Qingfeng Mountain Subschool is not worse than any other school. Yi Shiwen said with a cold smile on his face. Yes, that's right. Yi Feng nodded, then turned to Yi Ruxue and said, now I am all right and can take care of myself, so you don't have to look after me anymore. Go, use these few days left before the assessment to finish your closed-door training and try your best to break through to the Xiantian realm. At the time of assessment, we would be happy to have one more helper. Yi Ruxue looked at Yi Feng, then nodded and said, okay. She also knew that if she did not break into the Xiantian realm, then she won't be of any help to them. She still had the Xiantian pellet, gifted to her by Yi Shiwen, and breaking into the Xiantian realm was now much easier for her than others. Without a Xiantian pellet, even in the environment of main sect, breaking through to the Xiantian realm would still take a lot of time and effort. Both Wu Hao and Qian Wanru were somewhat enviously looking at Yi Ruxue, but unfortunately, they did not have a Xiantian pellet and it would take them some time before they finally enter into the Xiantian realm. Then, abruptly, a disciple of the Qingfeng Mountain Subschool hastily ran inside the courtyard and said, it's bad. A person has come outside to challenge Brother Yi. As expected, they really came. Yifeng said. So fast. Zhang Yang frowned and said, I'll go and take a look. Yi Shiwen said. Yi Shiwen went out of the courtyard and was surprised to find a white-robed youth coldly looking at him. This tall and sturdy young man's eyes had a faint Jin qi which burst out and splashed in all directions. He was exuding an ice-cold chill aura which appeared to be coming out from the glaciers. When Yi Shiwen glanced at him, the youth seemed as if his whole body was frozen just like a man made up of ice. Chapter 84. The three major subschools. The disciples from many subschools had gathered around to watch this fight, and disciples from other mountain peaks had also arrived because Yi Ziwen's fame had attracted them here, and these disciples were very interested to take a look at the strongest disciple of Qingfeng Mountain Subschool, who had recently got the limelight. Yi Shiwen looked at the challenger and said, Are you going to challenge me? Certainly. The man said. Who are you? Yi Shiwen asked. Bingdao Subschool's Chu Sun. The man replied. Bingdao, so he was actually the disciple of Bingdao Subschool, no wonder. On the east coastline of the Great Yu State, near the sea, there were some subschools, but Bingdao was one of the most famous ones because the disciples there practiced ice attribute power techniques. Ages ago, the forefathers had set up this system, as there was a world of ice and snow in 300 miles radius of the seacoast and was the best environment for practicing ice attribute techniques. The disciples who passed out from the Bingdao subschool were always very powerful. Subschools could be divided into strong or weak categories, and Qingfeng Mountain Subschool was one of the relatively weak, but on the contrary, Bingdao Subschool had always been known as one of the three major subschools. In the crowd of subschools, Bingdao Subschool's strength was ranked among the best. Chu Sun, he is Bingdao's Chu Sun, no wonder his strength seems so formidable. A disciple exclaimed. So he is, no wonder, excluding those three invincible masters, Chu Sun can be considered as one of the strongest. You are Chu Sun? Yi Shiwen said. After staying here for more than a day, it was not that Yi Shiwen did not know anything, and he had certainly been informed about the outstanding disciples of various strong subschools. This term's batch of subschool disciples was the strongest batch known for centuries, as if strong masters had literally reigned on the main sect. And the top three players among them were definitely the most outstanding disciples of the three subschools. In the past, the disciples of these three major subschools were the strongest, and therefore, they had obtained the most resources compared to other subschools and cultivated stronger disciples for the next term. With the repetition of this cycle, over time, these three subschools had gradually become the most formidable subschools with their strengths and resources far above other subschools. It could be said that, like always, all of the disciples of this session of the three major subschools were already in the Xiantian realm, and not only that, not a single Hotian realm disciples would be attending the assessment from these subschools. When Yi Shiwen heard this news, he could not help but held his breath in astonishment. All were Xiantian masters. What kind of ridiculous situation was this? It was said that these major subschools would put great and costly efforts to cultivate strong Xiantian disciples. And if the three major subschools would send more and more Xiantian disciples, then the other subschools had to spend as well on their outstanding disciples, although they never expected to be better than the other three major subschools, but at least, their own disciples wouldn't be easily bullied by the disciples of the three subschools. But, because the Qingfeng Mountain Yuan School was situated far away in the remote regions of Great Yu State, they obtained the news very late. No one knew how strong the three invincible masters actually were, because no one had forced them to use the full strength. But, the hierarchy of the disciples was well known to everyone, in which experts like Chu Sun held higher position compared to Wen Shiyang and others. In fact, Chu Sun was a lot stronger than Wen Shiyang. I hear that you claim to be the strongest subschool disciple, so I have personally come to teach you a lesson, so that you know the immensity of heaven and earth. Chu Sun coldly said. Certainly, it was not Yi Shiwen who had claimed to be the strongest disciple, but someone with ulterior motives, and they naturally didn't have good intentions for Qingfeng Mountain Subschool and its disciples. Whether I am the strongest disciple or not is none of your business, and you actually came to lecture me for this, Don't you have anything better to do? Yi Shiwen sneered and said. Anyways, this Chu Sun was really too arrogant. Just because he heard Yi Ziwen's name as the strongest disciple, he actually came to teach him a lesson? Does he really think that Yi Shiwen would just stand there and take his punches? You are courting death. Chu Sun had become furious. Who was he? He was a top disciple of Bingdao Subschool, one of 3 major subschools, but Yi Shiwen had dared to talk disrespectfully with him. Today I will cripple you and turn you into a pile of bones. Depends on you. Yi Shiwen repeatedly sneered. Chu Sun's figure suddenly flashed and his Jun Qi suddenly released out of his body. The ambient temperature of the surroundings steeply plunged, as if sucked into the world of ice and snow. Huge and ice-cold Jun Qi aura had instantly turned the entire surrounding pure white, and the ferocious power of Chu Sun, which was far above when Shiyang, had properly displayed itself in front of everyone with his 40% transformed Xiantian Jun Qi surging majestically high into the sky. After breaking through to the Xiantian first stage, ordinary masters possessed 10% transformed Xiantian Jun Qi, and only after transforming 20% of their Xiantian Jun Qi, they could reach the peak of Xiantian first stage. Similarly, after reaching the Xiantian second stage, those with 30% transformed Xiantian Jun Qi were considered ordinary third-stage masters, and only after transforming 40% Xiantian Jun Qi, they could reach the peak of Xiantian second stage. Chu Sun was at the peak of Xiantian second stage, and compared to an average expert, he was extremely powerful. Chu Sun shot his palm with a snow-white Jun Qi wrapped on his arms, resembling a pure white crystal which was unusually beautiful, but incredibly dangerous. His palm viciously shot and directly froze the surrounding air while producing a crackling sound. When Yi Shiwen saw Chu Sun's palm approaching towards him, in an instant, Yi Shiwen moved his hands and shot him palms, covered in a terrifying Jun Qi, which directly moved forward towards the incoming attack. Bang! 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 Their fight immediately approached the acme, and in an instant, a dozen blows had been exchanged between the two. Chu Sun was amazed, as he never thought that Yi Shiwen would be able to block his moves so easily. As one of the top disciples in Bingdao Subschool, although he was not the strongest, but he was still ranked among the top 5, but even so, he actually couldn't press down Yi Shiwen even after exchanging so many blows. He originally thought of Yi Shiwen as a boy who was boasting around after a little success, claiming to be the strongest disciple, but he never imagined that this boastful boy would actually be so strong. After coming to the main sect, many disciples bragged about themselves, but in Chu Sun's view, they were nothing but clowns. Even his big brother had never said that he was the strongest disciple. Then how could this man act recklessly and claim himself as the strongest disciple? He was in a bad mood and had come to vent his anger on Yi Shiwen, but he never thought that fighting Yi Shiwen would be like kicking an iron wall. Could it be that you are only at this level? Yi Shiwen sneered and said, "You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."